Okay, afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. Thought I'll come on and do a show. Don't have nothing planned for today, so tomorrow I might be busy. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn on YouTube with Trump's speaking here shortly on the Medal of Honor and all that. Somebody and all right, how's it going? All right, I'll be doing two shows today again. So hope you have a good day. Love it. Excuse me. I know everybody's working. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get. I don't know what channel will air on this. Uh, okay. Oh, who do we got? Oh, uh, darn it. Hang on, you guys. Chico, get up there. Come on. Oh, shoot. I'm gonna play this one here, and we'll do intel after this.
Punch that you do and then toss it to who's left and just go, or you don't believe that? Because are you saying Tom Cotton and Lindsey Graham are pitching something else on Capitol Hill?
I think clearly Tom Cotton and Lindsey Graham are pitching something else on Capitol Hill. I think basically they're selling him a bill of goods. The president has bought some of the items on the menu, but not all of the items on the menu. Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton are old guard 2000s George W. Bush era neoconservatives. They are taking what they can get from this president, and they're driving him, as P.J. O'Rourke, the late great P.J. O'Rourke said, they're driving the president like a rented car.
Wow.
They're going to move on from him whenever he leaves the scene, and they're going to continue their ideology into the 2030s if they're unfortunately still in government. I think to the question of decapitation within the Iranian government, yeah, they removed the head of state, Ali Khamenei. But as mentioned earlier in the segment, there is an entire apparatus beneath them. And I do have to flag, the Pentagon did a $500 million war game on this in 2002. Granted, a lot of things have changed, the taxes have changed, but strategically, they identified one key part of what this would look like, which is that the Iranians would be extremely resilient to leadership decapitation strikes, that they would just go next man up, as you would say, and they would prepare from there. And additionally, to an extent, like a lot of modern societies, Iran has lapsed into gerontocracy. If you remove the gerontocrats, you're just installing younger, potentially more able, more vicious successors. Now, there's also opportunity there. Maybe these are people that will understand the U.S. system and negotiate.
I guess I'm going to go ahead and do the intel. Okay, how's it going? Happy New Year. We're still going good here. Another day, another dollar, and another day of intel. So, yeah, we're getting a lot of new people in here. And main changes again. Flying Eagles mod. I got Lucy a mod, but she works during the day. Yeah, I know I missed my Arizona weather I grew up on. Hopefully, when this movie is over, that how they say we're going to be rich, that hopefully I'll be able to go back to Arizona. Kay will be glad to see you. Kay will be coming in, I hope. And Carol's still here. And Ann stepped away because she wasn't. She just was getting tired. JJ, Jacqueline comes in still. You remember Watts, Carol? Oh, yeah? Yeah. You're gonna, if you're coming back regularly, if you want to be a mod, let me know. If you want to be one. I pop up whenever. Today I've been doing 2 shows because there's a lot of intel out. I accomplished what I did. We got over 1 million views after adding all my channels I had. I had about 10 channels, I think. Yep, Carol. Yep, YouTube changed his name. I think the name again. And Tim Tim. Yeah, I still got Chico, yep. Yeah, he's up in the window right now. Yep, and I got Dude's pillow. Still, all the stuff that whoever, I can't remember who gave me all the Dude stuff. And my mother passed away 2 years ago, Watt. I don't know if you knew that. I got sick the night before. I couldn't go to the funeral. But doing my show got me through all this. I lost my mom and my dad too, so but my show helps me keep moving. And Chico and Dude. Okay, I just gave you a wrench. What? Tim, you remember Watts, don't you? Yep. Do you know how to drop the channel links? What? My channels and stuff? Is that no? I don't know. Kay been doing a lot of work for my channel. Oh, you know? Okay. Carol Billy Bean came out early this morning, a 20-minute one. I found a lot of good videos, you guys, on Telegram. Yep. Thanks a lot. Yep. So I've been helping a lot of people with my channel. They say that my channel keeps them keeping hope and everything. Yeah, Trump's speaking right now, but I got a lot of intel to show. My second show will probably be six o'clock. Yeah, Flying Eagles from Florida too. Thanks. Yep, lot of support. A lot of people helped me. Nurse Tutu, Norma, and Gracie, they all stepped away because what's her name? Nurse Tutu, the one that she was taking care of, she died, and since she died, they haven't responded. So, yep, we haven't been getting too many, right, Carol? This one there and there. Yesterday or the other day, Kay had fun with one about what he was saying, and I mentioned something, and I said something about 97% of the government's gone and stuff, and he stopped responding. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna make. I don't know, Flying Eagles coming in or not, but I'm gonna. I guess I got to start saying that YouTube entertainment purposes only and opinions only. Because I've been getting a lot of copy strikes, but no strikes. But Trump won that lawsuit, so everybody got their channels back. Well, yeah, YouTube's a lot better than StreamYard. Okay. Yeah, I got a lot of new channels I've been following on TikTok and stuff, mostly on TikTok. Okay, what should we... Yeah, I tried my best. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully Kay will be coming in, and we're missing Flying Eagle. He's probably working. So the first one will be 12 minutes. Let's do this one here. I don't know if you remember this one, Carol.
Ceremony in honor of the politically persecuted. With allegiance to God and the tenet of liberty, millions have stood up for our sacred values and done so with valor throughout our history. At times facing tyranny perpetrated by those who abandon freedom, whether here in our nation or serving abroad. Recently, brave souls have been standing their ground concerning election integrity, unlawful medical mandates, protection of our innocent young, our elders and vulnerable. They have been taking responsibility in matters of our border, legal citizenship, and public education without indoctrination. They have been standing for a clean environment for safe and abundant energy, water, and food production, while supporting our workers, farmers, and truckers. They have labored to preserve our Constitution, including our Second Amendment rights, freedom of speech, as well as all traditions which teach and sustain liberty. They have appealed to their elected officials in meetings and events with the redress of grievances once considered the duty of every citizen in attending to the preservation of constitutional freedom. These bold efforts throughout our history have customarily been documented as acts of devotion to God and freedom.
What do you think, Carol?
Yet we have a new crisis developing. Today, instead of being understood and met with respect, what many are discovering is that corruption is now being protected by a compromised press and even by some institutions and public officials as well. In the process, efforts to preserve our constitutional liberties are now being branded as crimes by some who see our Constitution, military laws, and principles as outdated. What much of the public has not yet been told is that in a gross overreach on the part of certain institutions, corporations, or facets of government, hundreds of our good citizens are being expelled from their...
Our old friend Watt is back, and I got another mod for us, so I found some good videos, Flying Eagle. This one, I hope it's good. But I said entertainment stuff at the beginning, but I was waiting for you to pin the banner up.
Careers, disenfranchised from their communities, and even ostracized by families and friends. Hundreds upon hundreds of others are being persecuted in dramatic public fashion, even handcuffed and dragged from their homes in front of their families and neighbors, shunned and treated as guilty even before having the opportunity to prove their innocence. As a result, many have suffered loss of residence, job, separation from their
Very
loved
important,
ones,
what I think.
and too many have come to know the searing sadness and loneliness that follows abandonment by the very people and nation that many defendants at one time had sworn to protect. A good number of our politically persecuted are veterans, first responders, or other public servants. These defendants and their families indeed face a level of daily stress, anxiety, and suffering that is unimaginable. As for their legal rights to due process and a speedy trial, in the case of those arrested, we are learning that their constitutional rights have been too often usurped in favor of a crippled, slow-walked, and prohibitively costly pseudo-process preceded by the impossible limitations of house arrest, restrictive probations, or worse yet, incarceration and solitary confinement while awaiting their day in court, suffering deplorable conditions only seen before in foreign POW camps during our world wars. The silence surrounding this miscarriage of justice and unlawful torment of our citizens is deafening. Yet, as these who have endured much wait and pray for justice, trying to hold on to hope, a growing number of people are waking up and stepping up to offer support of all kinds, such as contacting their public officials, writing letters to inmates and families affected by political persecution. They are sending care packages to families as well as to those who have no access to clean food or water while incarcerated. Other volunteers are alerting the public through community outreach and education, as well as raising funds for proper legal help, since many public defenders are politically active and operating in name only. This rising number of active citizens are resolute and will not rest or be silenced until all our politically persecuted have been restored or until they have been set free. And unto that glorious day, we the people will be their voice.
This is really
We
good,
the
I
people
think.
will be their friend, and we the people will remain their spiritual companion as we work and pray together on their behalf. The invocation for those suffering persecution for liberty's sake, and for those who stand with them. Creator God, we pray and petition heaven for your mercy to rain down upon our politically persecuted here in America, as we stand in solidarity with those across the world who have also been subject to terrible injury and loss, or who have become defendants or imprisoned in serving the cause of freedom. We intercede for them today with all our heart, soul, and mind, because they stand in our place, sometimes alone, facing the hate-filled enemies of liberty on the front lines of hell on earth, a profound sacrifice which we will never be able to fully grasp or repay. Let their shackles be our shackles, in that we will not rest in our labor on their behalf until they are restored, healed, or set free. That wherever these political prisoners and defendants are being held or tormented, that they feel your holy presence within every breath, filling them with hope, with strength to endure, and with the courage to stand their ground. We ask for protection from injury, that no weapon formed against them shall prosper. We ask that all those who seek to inflict suffering upon them will feel deep, irreversible conviction, and that they will cease in participation or complacency concerning any evil works and will do no more harm. We ask, beloved Creator, that your light lead our politically persecuted moment by moment through the valley of shadows. We pray blessings and godly peace upon their families, and that there be an outpouring of your provision for all needs as well as for righteous legal counsel. We ask that those communities surrounding the families of the persecuted stand with them in a spirit of love, mercy, and compassion. Divine Creator, we pray for the souls of the departed who have passed from this world due to the evil which was perpetrated upon them as they stood for freedom. We pray for comfort upon their families who grieve as we grieve with them. Their precious names are engraved upon our hearts, and so we pause for a moment of silence in their honor. We pray now for the soul of our nation, asking that all ungodliness be uprooted and removed from influence or power. May your light become our beacon as your righteousness is restored across the land and across our planet. May we one day soon witness liberty and justice being fully implemented so that your glorious plan for the vision, which is America, come into fruition according to your will. Beloved Creator, we thank you for each time that we gather under our banner of liberty. And as we do so, we pledge our allegiance to you and to our tenets of liberty and to our Constitution, affirming our faith in you to guide us through any fog of deception. In so doing, we realize that it is incumbent upon us to accept the mantle of responsibility which accompanies freedom. Therefore, help us to keep our minds focused on you as we embrace our duties in the way we live, in the way we consistently and sacrificially serve, and in the way we teach by our example all principles and laws of truth and freedom, so that liberty may endure for all generations to come. Finally, Divine Creator, be with us and help us grow in love for you and others, in humility, patience, and forbearance, so we can complete the mission which you have given each of us and do so with wisdom, honor, and unity. These things we commit to in remembrance of all who have sacrificed before us, or who are still serving or suffering in harm's way on behalf of liberty. We will remain in prayer and in service until the glorious day when all the captives will be set free and returned home, and all that has been lost will be restored. And we know that whatever we will have accomplished for good, it will have been by your mercy and grace. In your name we pray. Amen.
Okay, that was amen. Powerful, I think, you guys. Well said. I got some short ones, and I got about 4 or 5 good ones I found too. You guys remember this one?
9:47 a.m. Hi, baby. Baby, you have to listen to me carefully. I'm on a plane that's been hijacked. I'm on the plane. I'm calling from the plane. I want to tell you I love you. Please tell my children that I love them very much. And I'm so sorry, babe. I don't know what to say. There's 3 guys. They've hijacked the plane. I'm trying to be calm. We're turned around, and I've heard that there's planes that's been flown into the World Trade Center. I hope to be able to see your face again, baby. I love you. Bye. End of message.
It's a frame after telling him to listen carefully. And also, if you'll notice, there's no background noise. Here's unamplified video taken from the back of a commuter jet. Now here's Cece's call.
Tuesday, 9:47 a.m. Hi, baby. Baby, you have to listen to me carefully.
Nothing. The tape hiss from her husband's answering machine is louder than her background. This call was also from Cece's cell phone.
It was about like 9:30. I guess that's when the call started. Then I guess I didn't answer the phone until the last time she called, which was, I think it was like 9:51 or something to that. It was towards almost close to 10 o'clock by that time. And then that's when I get the phone call from her, and I actually had a chance to speak with her. Once the phone got disconnected, then I sat up in the bed because I did all this laying down. I sat up in the bed like it was like I just woke up. I'm like, was that a real call? So I looked at the caller ID and noticed that it was a call, and it was from her cell phone. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. How can she call me from on the plane from a cell phone? Because cell phones don't work on the plane.
Cece's call took place at 9:47, which means she would have been at 20,000 feet. How could she make that call unless on the ground?
That was interesting, huh? Next one is about 6 minutes, I think.
He was asked in Corpus Christi on Friday, he was asked if he has a preference in the U.S. Senate primary.
Pretty much, yeah.
This is Monday, March 2nd, 2026.
Texas Scorecard presents the day's first news for the Lone Star State. The Texas Minute with your host, Michael Quinn Sullivan.
Well, thanks for making the Texas Minute part of your Monday.
So.
It was 190 years ago today at Washington on the Brazos when delegates to the General Convention declared Texas to be independent of Mexico. Just a few weeks later, of course, at the Battle of San Jacinto, the independence declared became independence achieved. So, happy Independence Day. Let's get into today's news. President Donald Trump delivered an energy-focused speech at the port of Corpus Christi on the Gulf of America on Friday, drawing together seemingly every Texas office holder and office seeker. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, House Speaker Dustin Burrows, and Governor Greg Abbott all spoke to an enthusiastic crowd before Trump took the stage. For his part, the president's speech centered on energy production, exports, and his administration's policy, summed up as drill, baby, drill. Despite mounting speculation, though, Trump did not announce an endorsement in Texas' contentious U.S. Senate Republican primary. The three candidates, incumbent John Cornyn, Attorney General Ken Paxton, and U.S. Representative Wesley Hunt, were all present in the crowd. The president told reporters before speaking that he had, quote, pretty much made up his mind as to who he would support, but he refused to say who. The president did, though, announce two statewide endorsements on Friday: Sid Miller for re-election as Agriculture Commissioner and Don Huffines for Comptroller. The endorsements are especially notable because Governor Abbott has been campaigning for their opponents.
This one okay?
Texas can now enforce a ban on sexually explicit shows in front of children after federal appellate judges reversed a lower court ruling that had blocked the law. A two-judge panel of the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has lifted an injunction against enforcing the ban, which lawmakers passed back in 2023. The law regulates sexually oriented performances on public property and in the presence of minors. It includes a ban on erotic drag shows in front of children. The judges expressed doubt that, quote, pulsating prosthetic breasts and being spanked by audience members.
I didn't like that guy. Sorry about that one, you guys. There's our TikTok guy. I think this one's 9 minutes.
March 1st, the year of our Lord 2026. This is in reference to
good,
the Operation Epic Fury attack on Iran. This is about allowing the Iranian people to take back their country. Back in 1979, when the Shah of Iran left, I guess the clerics, the Muslim community, that whole debacle about taking over the country and making it an Islamic state has been nothing but problematic for everyone on the planet. President Trump, and this is the thing that I'm trying to stress right now. When I saw him tell the people, he's speaking directly to the people yesterday, speaking directly to them. He says, this is your chance. We will help you take back your country. The Iranian people want democracy. They want a fair, I guess what you might say, kind of a country, not so much like the United States, but that's free, that establishes liberty for them, their rights, and allows the people of Iran to exercise their rights because they're protected, just like the United States. He was telling the Iranian people, take back your country. This is your chance. I've had some conversations, you might say, with people in the know. A very good friend of mine is Stephen Emerson. He's been talking about this for a while. I want you to go look at a documentary he put out a few years ago called Jihad in America, the Grand Deception. It's about the Muslim Brotherhood. Steve Emerson is one of the leading authorities in the world on how this is playing out, how it's going to end, and how it's going to bring back, I guess, the sovereignty of the people of that nation. And basically, here's what's going to happen. And I have not spoken to him yet, but he and I both know are on the same page. What's going to happen is right now, the leadership of the country of Iran is basically gone. The IRGC, the Iranian Guard, is going to retaliate. These are the worker bees, and they're going to start trying to blow stuff up in Saudi Arabia, etc., and bases around the area, American bases. But what is happening right now is the Iranian, I guess what you might cleric monarchy, or whatever you want to call it, authoritarian Muslim government is beginning to collapse because they've killed most of the leaders, if not all of them. And it's collapsing as we speak right now. Having said that, the NCRI, National Council of Resistance of Iran, these are the young people that are trying to basically bring Iran back to its real self, a country that is not oppressive. It allows people to speak freely, and it protects their rights. And guess what? And be productive. Okay. And they don't want to, like what has been going on, they don't want to finance terrorism around the country. They're not terrorist people. The Muslims in this particular region are funding and terrorizing people across the planet. I guess what you might say, the NCRI have a 10-point provisional transition, I guess what you might say, strategy to transition the Iran that we knew that's been attacked into a more democratic nation, one that it regards the rights of all people within that nation. It is happening right now as we speak. The NCRI is going to transition here in probably, I would say, 10, 12 days fully transition. It may take a little bit more. It depends on what happens with the IRGC, the Iranian Guard. If these guys can get, and in fact, here's the interesting point. And I don't mean to laugh. This is very, very serious. But Donald Trump has a way with words. Watch, listen, go and try to search out a few of the things what he was saying just yesterday. He says he was speaking directly to the Iranian Guard, the IRGC. He says, if you give up now, you'll get immunity. You'll be able to go about your way. If you don't, the result will be death. He's basically telling you, you can give up now, okay? Walk away clean, or we'll kill you. As he said, the result will be death. This is what I love about him. He doesn't have to cloud it. He doesn't have to veil it. He doesn't have to, okay. He said, we're going to kill you. These people, these Iranian clerics, the Iranian Guard, the clerics that run that terrorist state, were killing their own people for protesting about what they were being oppressive, the government being oppressive. Basically, we want to talk about oppressive. These people were speaking out, and they were killing them like it was free. They were killing them by the dozens and dozens and the hundreds in the streets of their own country. A transition is going to take place. The NCRI, National Council of Resistance of Iran. These people have a 10-point, I guess what you might say, strategy to usher in a new government and bring Iran back to its good original self and be part of the world rather than be looked at as a terrorist state.
Well,
a terrorist funding state.
Barnes, welcome. And
watch as this plays out.
Coming in.
This is not going to be a war. All the Democrats on the left he's waging war. He can't wage war. This is not a war. It's an operation. Take a few people out. Let the Iranian people institute a new government, put in their regime that can protect the rights of the people of Iran. Pray for the people of Iran. Pray for our president. This is going to work out. Watch what happens. Watch as this develops. You're watching a global struggle for the balance of power. I've talked about this for well over a year in my documentaries, in some of my clips on TikTok. We're witnessing globally right now a struggle for the balance of power. China is making inroads, and they're trying to position themselves to be the dominant force on this planet. Trump is not going to let that happen. He's going to basically help the Iranians, and when the Iranians take back their country, they will be a supporter of the U.S. in that region. They will be wealthy, and they will be strong. We're going to have allies. We're going to position ourselves not only in the global south, but in the Middle East, especially with America, in the global north. Watch as this happens. Watch this global struggle for the balance of power play out. America is going to be strong, and America is not going to lose its, I guess what you might say, its strength on the global, I guess, stage. We are the greatest nation in the world, and Donald Trump is not going to let that change at all. I love this guy. I love watching him. Telling the IRGC, you can go walk away home or you're going to die. There's nothing better. That's why I love this guy. It is freaking great. Hey, everybody, HG and
Okay, our TikTok guy from yesterday's. I got some short ones coming up, and then we'll do Billy Bean from this morning. Came out.
Well, I'm here to answer your questions. This is how you can make profits from your stolen identity in the straw man before it's too late. The system you trust is crumbling. Your banks, your savings, your future, all at the mercy of those pulling the strings behind closed doors. They've planned this for decades. But there's a way out if you act now. Watch your investments grow daily, and at the end of each plan's duration, withdraw your profits or reinvest them. The choice is yours, but time is not. Go to www.escapefiatnow.com. When you first visit, you'll see a clean, simple layout. Click on Register. Enter your basic details. Create a secure password. And in seconds, you'll be inside your dashboard. Here, you can deposit cryptocurrency for direct investment or use it to purchase gold or silver. Either way, your assets are placed into powerful investment streams built on the NSARA GSARA framework. The Silver Awakening Plan, 0.25% per hour for 48 hours. From $20 to $999. Total return, 12%. The Freedom Signal Plan, 0.35% per hour for 36 hours. From $1,000 to $9,999. Total return, 12.6%. The Gold Shield Protocol, 0.5% per hour for 30 hours. From $10,000 to $49,909. Total return, 15%. The Sovereign Tier Plan, 0.65% per hour for 24 hours. From $50,000 to $500,000. Total return, 15.6%. Once you choose a plan, your earnings grow automatically. Track your progress in real time. Withdraw or reinvest. The choice is yours. But remember, time is running out. Go now, before the door closes.
How's that one, you guys? So the next one's 8 minutes. I'm not sure on this one, Flying Eagle.
Running our literally with the incentive to make money to the point where they'll sue us, they'll sue the state, they'll sue the town if we don't put enough prisoners in jail. So if we do a good job and keep all of the crime off the streets, we're going to get sued by these companies. Picture that pressure environment. Now do you see why that trickles down to the police and they're so enforceful and why they need your ID? That's step one to throwing you in prison. That's what this is all about. That's why it's all about, let me see your papers, right? We did another huge dig. Let me give you the quick results and another TTS.
Look at the sign on your local county jail. It has your county's name on it. It has your state's seal on it. But in 2026, those symbols are a lie. You are looking at a foreign embassy of corporate greed, and you are the one paying the rent. Right now, across this country, we are witnessing what the Minnesota Attorney General is calling an unconstitutional occupation. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a court filing. Under Operation Metro Surge, thousands of federal agents are flooding into local streets, not to make you safer, but to satisfy a contract. You see, the private equity firms and global REites that own these facilities, companies like Geo Group and Core Civic, don't see criminals. They see occupancy units.
Remember
and they
this
have
one,
a
you guys?
fail-safe. It's called a bed quota clause. These contracts, signed by your representatives in rooms you weren't invited to, guarantee that these jails stay 90 to 100% full. If crime goes down, if your neighborhood actually gets safer, the company doesn't celebrate. They sue. They sue your state for lost profits because there aren't enough human beings in cages to meet their quarterly earnings report. Think about that. You are paying a peace penalty. Your tax dollars are being weaponized against your own safety because a safe city is a breach of contract for a billionaire in a different time zone.
And don't be fooled by the American flags in their lobbies. These are publicly traded shells. Your local justice system is being managed by international investment funds and foreign entities like Serco and G4S. They have no skin in your community. They have no interest in your sovereignty. They are here for the harvest. They've turned your local police into delivery drivers for a global supply chain of incarceration. They've turned your constitution into a lease agreement. And they've turned your town into an occupied territory where the occupancy is the only thing that matters. The word on the street is that the jails are suing the states because they aren't keeping up with the occupancy. The word on the street is right. The house is empty, the bill is due, and they are coming for the raw material to fill the beds. Welcome to the invisible occupation. It's time to ask, who actually owns your city?
Some people might have missed it.
Now, let's talk about the ghosts in the machine. Let's talk about how they steal your vote without ever touching a ballot box. In most of this country, when you are locked in a cage, you are legally transformed into a political phantom. Under the Census Bureau's usual residence rule, a rule the Bureau is still refusing to fix in 2026, you are no longer a resident of your home, your neighborhood, or your city. You are officially counted as a resident of the rural district where the private jail sits. This is prison gerrymandering, and it is a mathematical hack of American democracy. Think of a tiny rural town with a population of 2,000 people. Now drop a 5,000-bed private prison into its center. Overnight, that district's population...
You might want to go back to the beginning because I played a good video about 15 minutes, I think it was, less than 15. I don't know if you were listening.
grows by 5,000 residents. That town suddenly gets more state funding. It gets more seats in the legislature. It gets more weight in the halls of power. But here is the catch. The prisoners cannot vote. These are phantom constituents.
I don't think anybody...
They are human beings used as population padding to give rural pro-prison politicians an artificial boost in power. It is a literal transfer of political influence from the urban streets, where these people were taken, to the rural corridors where the corporations build their cages. It creates a cycle of rot that is impossible to break. The more people a politician helps lock up in their district, the more political power that politician gains. They aren't representing the people in the cells. They are representing the capacity of the cells. They are incentivized to fight every reform, block every early release, and protect every bed quota, because if those beds go empty, their political career disappears with the population count. While 19 states have fought back to end this theft, the rest are still...
Who is this here? I've never seen his name before, but I don't talk too much over the video, only just a few seconds. So let's be respectful, please. I got mods in here, so let's be respectful. And yeah, Kay, can you drop the link to this one? Thanks. I think we got a lot of trolls in here today. Maria.
Running the scam. In states like Texas, Florida, and Mississippi, your representation is being diluted by a population that is legally silenced. They aren't just stealing years of people's lives. They are stealing the democratic voice of the communities they left behind. It's a system where the cage doesn't just hold a body. It holds a census count that keeps the machine running. You think you live in a one-person, one-vote democracy? Not as long as the phantoms are being used to balance the books. Phase 2 is complete. They've occupied your town. Now they've stolen your vote. You've seen the occupation. You've seen the political theft. Now look at it, or the lack of one. In the private prison economy of 2026, freedom served. It's invoiced. Imagine you've finished your time. You walk to the gate, ready to start over. But as the door clicks shut behind you, they hand you a bill. This is pay to stay. In 48 states, the jail can charge you for the cost of your own cage. Sometimes $50, sometimes $100 every single day. You walk out with $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 in incarceration debt. It's a debt you can't pay because with a record and no credit, you can't get a job. And because you can't get a job, you can't get a house. In some counties, if you miss a payment on your prison rent, they put out a warrant. You go back to jail for the crime of being unable to pay for your last stay. It is the perfect closed-loop system. The company gets paid by the state to hold you, and then they bill you for the privilege of being held. But what if they hurt you while you're inside? What if the medical care, provided by private equity-backed giants like WellPath or Corazon, is so shoddy you leave with a permanent disability, or you don't leave at all? That's where they perform the Texas two-step. As we saw throughout 2024 and 2025, these companies use a legal loophole to split into two. They put all their profits and contracts into a clean company and dump all the medical neglect lawsuits into a death company. Then, they file for bankruptcy for the shell, wiping out thousands of claims for pennies on the dollar. The families of the dead get nothing. The company, under a new name like YesCare or Teham, keeps the multi-million-dollar contracts and moves on to the next county. It's a system designed to ensure that once you enter the orbit of the private justice industry, you never truly leave. You are either a unit in a bed, a phantom on a census map, or a debtor on a balance sheet. The jails are suing the states for empty beds. The medical companies are dancing through bankruptcy courts to avoid accountability, and the bill is being sent to you, the taxpayer and the target. This isn't justice. This is a harvest. And as long as there is a profit in the pulse of a prisoner, the machine will never stop. Phase 3 is over. The cycle is complete. Who's next?
Okay, that was another second video that was interesting. Yeah, Lori, we got enough mods. We'll be all right. Okay, Billy Bean time. I gotta find her here. $20.
p.m. The things we'll cover. Confirmed. In Texas, we did have a terrorist attack.
Yeah, we play every day.
President Trump, I believe, must remain resolute. Iran sinks 4 ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and Keir Starmer with the UK says, oh, it's okay now for the U.S. military to defend UK bases. I got this to say to Keir Starmer, shut up.
Uh-oh.
So let's see what's going on. So my last video I put out in Austin, Texas last night, there was a mass shooting, and it has been confirmed now that was an individual activated by Iran, part of a sleeper cell infiltration of America, activated by Iran to kill Americans. This took place in Austin, Texas, West 6th Street last night, in front of Buford's Bar, where an individual named Nadaga Diakwa, originally the information we have from Senegal, who had been in the U.S. long enough to become a U.S. citizen, who killed 3, injured 14 with a pistol and rifle And on his clothing, he had, in certain references to Allah, he also had the flag of Iran. The FBI has now confirmed this was believed to be a sleeper cell shooting. So keep your powder dry, baby. And we've got this. So Iran has been hitting the Cyprus base. Cyprus is a small island off of Israel's coastline where there is a UK base, and I believe the US also parks planes there. Now, as I put out in previous videos, the UK leader, Keir Starmer, who many believe is in the pocket of the CCP, said the US could not use any UK bases to launch an offensive hit on Iran. Now that Iran is hitting the UK bases, Keir Starmer, hypocrite, comes out and makes the audacious statement, oh, okay, well, now the U.S. military can defend the UK bases. Keir Starmer, shut up. And what is the purpose of the UK military if it cannot engage in offensive military action and it cannot engage in defending its own base? Is this UK military simply a group who put on uniforms and engage in ceremonies? Keir Starmer, you are insulting the UK military by implying that the UK military cannot even defend its own bases. So I say to President Trump, let the UK take care of its own. And we have this. And we know that Iran has been hitting many times its neighbors, Oman, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait, Jordan, Iraq, and I believe even into Syria to hit U.S. military bases. But Iran is going a step further with its neighbors directly across the Persian Gulf from it by hitting in its neighbors civilian infrastructure and civilian airports. Iran is led by psychopaths. Some have been taken out, the Ayatollah, and we understand 48 Iranian leaders were taken out in that first strike on Iran Saturday, and that the U.S. also sank at that same time 9 Iranian ships. We're hearing now that Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz and that Iran has sank 4 ships or tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. We do not yet have details on what these ships or tankers were named or what countries they came from, and so on. And we have this. Yeah, the UK cannot even defend its own bases. And we have this from Prepper News. President Trump believes the hits on Iran will last up to 4 weeks. And I know, tragically, we've heard reports that 3 U.S. troops have been killed by Iran and 5 to 8 injured. And I pray that President Trump will remain resolute in order for peace to prevail in the Middle East and then spread around the world. It is absolutely necessary that the current Iranian government and the current Iranian military be neutralized. I believe that President Trump has a common sense handle on how long it will take. And he's saying up to 4 weeks. And we have this. It's believed inside Iran that the communications network between the IRGC and the Iranian military has been totally disrupted, and that IRGC and the Iranian military individuals are simply making rogue hits, not under a centralized military control. And we have this. Yeah. So the hits we're seeing coming out of Iran, it's believed, are just the decisions of the individual Iranian military on the ground. 4 ships are said to have been sunk, or tankers, in the Strait of Hormuz. So that's going on. And we have this. Iran is believed that it will soon hit tankers. Well, it's this was earlier today, and now it is actually sinking ships and tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. And that Saudi Arabia now is mounting, not only to defend Saudi Arabia, I guess Saudi Arabia has a real military, but Saudi Arabia is meeting tonight with other Middle Eastern countries, and it's believed a possibility may come out of that meeting that Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries will engage in offensive strikes on Iran, and that we have a possibility of hits then being made inside Iran on its oil refineries. So that's going on. Excuse me. And we have this. Many are tying, excuse me, what's happening in Iran to Jeremiah 49, where the Lord says, I will break the bow of Elam, and Elam is believed to be a biblical term for Iran. And that once that is all cleared away, that Iran will rise in the work of the people of the Lord. And we've been hearing for years that Iran has the fastest growing Christian population anywhere in the world. So that's going on. God, and the American people, President Trump, and the U.S. military and other militaries, I believe God is on our side. And we have this. I wanted to, with regard to that terrorist attack in Austin, Texas, put this out. I just recalled it about 30 years ago when I was in college. In the summer, I had to take a philosophy course. And my instructions were go to 3 religious services, not your own religion. One I went to was a mosque in downtown Houston, and I was shocked by the message. Eventually, my paper was passed to the Houston police, where the religious message was, we, the people of Islam in America, it's our job to raise our children up, to take over the U.S. government, to destroy America from within. So you see, sleeper cells have been in America for a long time. So that's going on. And I also want to point this out. Recently, we heard President Trump make the State of the Union message, and we heard about an alternate meeting the Dems were going to. New information: who sponsored, organized, and paid for that alternate meeting of the commie Dems, as opposed to attending the State of the Union message. I have reliable sources. It was George Soros, MoveOn.org. So we see the commie Dems directly in collusion with the anti-America MoveOn.org. And we have this. So we're hearing, Jeremiah 49 from some pastors like Jack Hibbs, and also Monkey Works mentions this, that many Christians believe what we see going on in Iran correlates to the Bible. And we have this from P. Gurus. It's believed that the U.S. hit on Iran was to take out, we know, the leadership, Ayatollah, and they took out 40 leaders, but now President Trump says it was 48 leaders. And that the U.S., from another source, during Saturday, put out 900 strikes in 12 hours, indicating the strength of the U.S. military. And Iran is making more hits on its neighbors, including Middle Eastern countries and Israel. We have the IRGC during the initial hits by the U.S. military have taken out 25 to 30 leaders of the IRGC, which goes along with the reports we're getting that the strikes we're seeing coming out of Iran now, it's believed, is being done by individuals on the ground who have no contact. Their communication network has been wiped out, and they're just making their own decisions. And one of those results was today, early this morning, we saw Iran sink one of its own ships in the Strait of Hormuz. And we see Iran hitting civilian infrastructure and airports of its neighbors. And we have this, Iran has arrived at an interim Ayatollah. So what they do, the Ayatollah was taken out. They have a group of 3, which is a cleric, who are members of what's called the Guardian Council. President Prigozhin is a part of this group of 3. Chief Justice Ajay is a member. And the cleric member was Alireza Arafin. Arafin has been named the interim Ayatollah. I hope he has his will in good order. And we have this from Daily Mail. The first hit on Iran took out the Ayatollah plus 48 Iranian leaders. And that the U.S. also sank at that same time 9 Iranian Navy ships. And the U.S. military is going after the rest. President Trump, it's believed, Iran, with this interim leader, Arafat, has made a request to President Trump to have talks. President Trump has said, sure, I'll talk, but we'll continue Operation Epic Fury that is moving ahead very fast. And President Trump had earlier said Epic Fury was ahead of schedule. We have from the Geller report. It's being reported that Israel has killed in Iran a previous Iranian leader, Ahmadinejad. Ahmadinejad was famous for making the statement that Iran would wipe Israel off of the map. So that's going on from Just News. We're hearing that a U.S. embassy in Karachi, Pakistan has been hit. More details. It's been hit by pro-Iran government protesters, hundreds of them, who also set on fire a Pakistani police station. The Pakistan police responded and have quelled the hit on the U.S. Embassy with 9 dead and 25 injured. And we have this coming from InfoWars, reporting that Russia is now willing to accept U.S. security guarantees. Now, I have a problem with this report because the source is coming from Ukraine, the intel leader Budanov, who I do not trust. So I'm going to wait and see what comes out from the U.S. government regarding the U.S. providing security guarantees for Ukraine. But that's being reported. We have from Monkeywork, yes, a terrorist jihadist attack is being put out, occurred last night in Austin, Texas. And now it's coming out that the Iranian government has put out a fatwa against the U.S. for attacks to for hits to be made inside the U.S. against American citizens. That's the current Iranian government with the interim leader, Arafin, who now wants to talk to President Trump. I don't think President Trump's eyes are going to be blinded to what is actually going on. And we know, many who have read the Quran, it plainly says you can lie, cheat, steal, kill anyone who is not Muslim. So yeah, President Trump, don't be fooled. And inside Texas now, we have our law enforcement, our U.S. military, National Guard, as well as the Texas military on high alert. And they're being spread out across Texas to protect the infrastructure, electricity, water, natural gas. The operational name for Texas military is Operation Fury Shield. So that's going on. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, that's the first one of Billy. The other day, she had a video, and I had to turn it off. I don't know why we had to turn that one off, but today's video was fine. So, Grace, I got... Hold on here. That's the channel. 80,000 subscribers they got. Here's another map one, similar to what we did yesterday.
Understand what the Strait of Hormuz actually is. It is a small area of just 33 kilometers located between Iran, Oman, and the UAE. It is a narrow sea passage through which almost 20% of the world's oil supply flows, nearly 17 million barrels every day. This oil comes from 8 countries located in the Persian Gulf, including Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. For the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar, 90% of their oil exports pass through this narrow route to reach the rest of the world. If Iran blocks the Strait of Hormuz, following countries will suffer the most damage. First is India, because it imports 85% of its oil, and 60% of that comes from Middle Eastern countries like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the UAE. Fuel prices in India would skyrocket, and as a result, everything related to oil and all industries would face severe disruption. industries could shut down. There would be job losses and the economy would be severely affected. The second most affected country would be China. China is the world's largest oil importer, bringing in 10 million barrels of oil every day. 40% of China's oil imports pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Although China has built oil pipelines with Russia and Central Asia, they don't even fulfill 20% of its energy needs. So, if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, China's economy could suffer a massive blow. And if China's economy is shaken, its effects will be felt all over the world. The third most affected country would be Japan, as it imports 90% of its oil, and 75% of that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. The fourth most affected country would be Saudi Arabia. 80 to 90% of Saudi Arabia's oil goes to the rest of the world through Strait of Hormuz, while only 10% goes to Europe via its Red Sea coastline. So if this choke point is blocked, Saudi Arabia's economy will be heavily impacted. Imagine that a country suddenly loses 80 to 90% of its revenue. What would happen to it? Something similar could happen to Saudi Arabia. There's also a high chance that Saudi Arabia might send in its military to reopen the route, and that could make the situation even worse. Fifth is Pakistan, which gets about 90% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. This oil meets around 27% of the country's energy needs. So if the route is blocked, prices in Pakistan could rise sharply. But there's an interesting twist. Since Pakistan shares a border with Iran, and several government reports suggest that 35% of Pakistan's diesel comes unofficially from Iran. So if the strait is blocked, Pakistan might turn to Iran for oil, either quietly or through an official deal. Next in line is the UAE, because as nearly as 72% of its oil exports rely on this Strait of Hormuz, the country does have a backup option, the Habshan Fujairah pipeline, which allows it to bypass the strait and export up to 60% of its oil. But for a major economy like the UAE, losing the remaining 40% would still be a serious blow. Next comes the European countries like France, Germany, and Italy, which on average get 10% of their oil through the Strait of Hormuz. A blockade here would hit them hard as well. Globally, experts warn that oil prices could soar past $150 a barrel, causing widespread inflation and possibly triggering a major global recession. So this small 33-kilometer area holds enough power to shake the entire world.
Okay, map there again. I'm going to do some short ones. And I'm going to do the one FBI raid one. It's about 15. Then I'm going to play the YouTube lady.
This is Master Obi-Wan
About
Kenobi.
2.5.
I regret to report that both our Jedi Order and the Republic have fallen.
This might be old.
With the dark shadow of the Empire rising to take their place. This message is a warning and a reminder for any surviving Jedi. Trust in the Force. Do not return to the temple. That time has passed. And our future is uncertain. We will each be challenged. Our trust, our faith, our friendships. But we must persevere. And in time, a new hope will emerge. May the force be with you, always.
Okay, I thought that was interesting. We got this a little bit ago. Eight minutes.
The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3rd, 1863, has posthumously awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Master Sergeant Roderick W. Edmonds, United States Army. Master Sergeant Roderick W. Edmonds distinguished himself by acts of gallantry above and beyond the call of duty from January 27, 1945 to March 30th, 1945 as a prisoner of war in Germany. Upon arrival at Stalag 9A in Zietenhain, Germany, on the evening of January 26, 1945, the Germans announced that only Jewish American prisoners would fall out for roll call the following morning at the threat of execution. Master Sergeant Edmonds directed his senior leaders to have all 1,200 American prisoners present themselves for roll call. The Nazi commandant became incredulous after realizing that so many Americans were standing in
Have a
formation.
good afternoon.
The commandant removed his pistol, pressed it hard against Master Sergeant Edmonds' forehead between his eyes, and demanded that he order all Jewish American prisoners to step forward or he would be shot. Master Sergeant Edmonds fearlessly held his ground, refusing to concede. The commandant lowered his weapon without further attempts to segregate the Jewish American prisoners. Several weeks later, in March 1945, the Germans ordered all prisoners to assemble outside the barracks for evacuation. Master Sergeant Edmonds ordered all American prisoners to form in front of the barracks, and when the enemy transports arrived, they would break ranks and rush back to the barracks. Master Sergeant Edmonds gallantly led these prisoners in a relentless pursuit of opposition and resistance, forcing the Germans to abandon the camp, leaving the 1,200 American prisoners behind. Master Sergeant Edmonds' conspicuous gallantry above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit in the United States Army. Command Sergeant Major Terry P. Richardson. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3rd, 1863, has awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Staff Sergeant Terry P. Richardson, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Terry P. Richardson distinguished himself by acts of gallantry above and beyond the call of duty on September 14th, 1968, in the vicinity of Loc Ninh, Republic of Vietnam. On this date, his company was tasked with the mission of securing Hill 222 in hostile and enemy territory near the Cambodian border. Staff Sergeant Richardson directed one of his squads to be the point element leading the way. Shortly after the assault began, 3 of the squad members became severely wounded and pinned down between 3 enemy machine gun bunkers. Staff Sergeant Richardson advanced forward under heavy enemy fire and recovered his wounded soldiers between heavy machine gun fire. By the time he was able to make it back to join his unit, his entire company had been completely surrounded by the enemy. Staff Sergeant Richardson recognized that the only way to keep his company from being overrun was with accurate tactical airstrikes. Staff Sergeant Richardson advanced to the top of Hill 222 under heavy enemy fire for better sight lines to direct the tactical airstrikes. He began to direct the tactical airstrikes and shortly thereafter became wounded by an enemy sniper. Staff Sergeant Richardson continued directing the tactical airstrikes for 7 more hours before the enemy broke contact. 6 soldiers from his platoon found him still alive. Staff Sergeant Richardson declined medical evaluation for his gunshot wound and requested that he be allowed to stay to lead his soldiers. Altogether, his actions directly resulted in 85 lives being spared on that fateful day. Staff Sergeant Richardson's conspicuous gallantry and extraordinary heroism at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army.
Three minutes.
Robert and Linda Ollis accepting on behalf of their son, Staff Sergeant Michael H. Ollis. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress March 3, 1863, has posthumously awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Staff Sergeant Michael H. Ollis, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Michael H. Ollis distinguished himself by acts of gallantry above and beyond the call of duty on 28 August 2013 in Afghanistan. On this date, a complex enemy attack involving multiple vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, suicide vests, indirect fire, and small arms fire was launched against Forward Operating Base Hanzi. Staff Sergeant Ollis ordered his fellow soldiers to move to bunkers to shield themselves from enemy fire. After accounting for his soldiers, he moved toward the enemy force that had penetrated the perimeter of the forward operating base. Staff Sergeant Ollis located a coalition forces officer, and together they moved toward the point of attack, armed with only their rifles. Upon reaching the attack point, they linked up with other friendly forces and began a coordinated effort to repulse the enemy. While under continuous fire, Staff Sergeant Ollis moved from position to position, engaging the enemy with accurate and effective fire. While fighting along the perimeter, an insurgent came around the corner. Staff Sergeant Ollis fired on the insurgent and incapacitated him, but as he approached the downed insurgent, the insurgent's suicide vest detonated and mortally wounded him. Staff Sergeant Ollis's exceptional courage and complete disregard for personal safety were in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon him, his unit, in the United States Army.
Okay, that was just a little bit ago, you guys. Important play there for our military people. I got two nephews. One's getting out sometime this year, and one with the pilot one. And then I got a second nephew that's a soldier that is a fighter on the guns and stuff and front line. So he's been in over 10 years and not sure how much longer he's going to go. Hopefully he'll get out soon.
Plano. The other is a business right off of Harry Hines Boulevard in Dallas.
Thanks for joining us at noon. I'm Sam Shocker. Today, DEA Rocky Mountain talked about yet another large drug bust, this time involving hundreds of pounds of meth.
Now, we've learned that both the business and the home in Plano are connected via tax records.
The cargo manifest said it was medical equipment. 12 pallets, pre-cleared, priority release. Daniel Mercer had signed every single one. But when DEA forensic teams cracked open the crates under the fluorescent lights of Terminal 7, there was no medical equipment. There were 340 kilograms of pure cocaine, vacuum sealed inside surgical supply packaging, so convincing that even custom scanners had passed it clean. On the table beside the crates sat Mercer's personal authorization stamp, used 94 times in the past 11 months. This moment ended a 14-month investigation. Here's how it started.
The people responsible, including a kingpin in Mexico, now face a 15-defendant federal indictment. Wiretaps, undercover operations, extensive surveillance, and swift enforcement action led to enormous seizures in this case.
3:14 a.m., Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, Texas. On paper, this was one of the busiest cargo corridors in the Western Hemisphere. 2.1 million tons of freight processed annually, 200 international carriers. Billions in legitimate commerce moving through those terminals every single week. But beneath that surface, something else was moving. The DEA's Southwest Intelligence Division had been tracking a ghost, a narcotics pipeline so clean, so well protected, that for over a year it barely left a trace. 11 months of seized phones, burned couriers, and dead-end leads had finally collapsed into one name, one man, one badge. And what investigators were about to find inside that airport would shake federal law enforcement to its core. $189 million in narcotics, 57 arrests, and a network so deeply embedded in American infrastructure that senior DEA commanders would later describe it as, quote, the most operationally sophisticated domestic infiltration we have ever documented. But here are the questions nobody could answer yet. Who gave Mercer his clearance codes? Why had 6 federal inspections in the past year been quietly redirected away from Terminal 7? What was inside the encrypted drive recovered from a janitor's locker in Concourse D? And why, when agents pulled satellite phone records, did one number trace back to a retired military attach with active federal clearance? 4 questions. 14 months of work. And what they found in the first 10 minutes of that raid? Keep watching. 4:02 a.m. FBI breach teams hit 6 locations simultaneously. Not just the airport, not just one terminal, 6 locations, all activated within the same 90-second window. Terminal 7 Cargo Bay, a private aviation hangar on the airport's south perimeter, a logistics warehouse in Grand Prairie, a commercial cold storage facility in Fort Worth, a stash house in Irving, and a document processing office in downtown Dallas that on paper was a freight consulting firm. At Terminal 7, the first breaching team moved through the cargo access corridor in total silence. No flashbangs, no shouted commands. Tactical precision. They needed the servers intact. The moment the first agent cleared the secondary door, they found 3 men mid-shred, documents feeding into an industrial destroyer, laptops already wiped. One man with a phone in his hand that he swallowed rather than surrender. They were too late to stop the shredder. They weren't too late for everything else. At the Grand Prairie warehouse, SWAT hit the loading dock just as a convoy of 3 refrigerated trucks was pulling out. 2 trucks stopped. 1 ran. A DEA chase unit intercepted it 11 blocks away. Inside, 1.4 tons of methamphetamine packed inside frozen fish crates. 680,000 fentanyl pills pressed to look like prescription oxycodone, and a manifest signed by a logistics coordinator, whose name would appear again, much later, in a very different context. Across all 6 locations, within the first 40 minutes, 2.8 tons of cocaine, 4 million fentanyl pills, $12 million in loose cash, 47 military-grade rifles, 12 handguns with obliterated serials, and body armor, 3 sets bearing authentic Texas Department of Public Safety markings. But it was what agents found in the consulting office in downtown Dallas that changed everything. A server rack, still running, military-grade encrypted. And on the primary terminal, a single open folder labeled Blueprint. The file was 6.4 gigabytes. The agents couldn't open it on site. It went to Quantico on the first available flight. What was on that drive? That's when the investigation stopped being a drug case and became something else entirely. If you think this is big, the next discovery will shock you. Stay with me. 6 hours later, FBI Cyber Command, Quantico, Virginia. 2 analysts from the Bureau's Critical Infrastructure team cracked the first encryption layer at 11:47 a.m. What populated their screens wasn't just a cartel ledger. It was an architecture, a living map. Shell companies, 31 of them nested inside agricultural import firms, freight forwarding companies, and 2 registered charities operating out of Houston. Ghost accounts routing money through Belize, then Cyprus, then back into 2 Texas-based construction contractors. They named it internally Operation Iron Corridor. The money flow was elegant and brutal. Sinaloa cartel moved product into cargo shipments originating from legitimate Mexican commercial partners. Those shipments entered DFW under pre-authorized clearance codes that only a federal aviation security director could generate. The cargo cleared without secondary inspection. The proceeds moved through shell companies, laundered as contractor payments, and a portion, a small consistent portion, landed in a private account registered to a Delaware LLC with no public officers. One analyst, 12-year veteran Maria Torres, later told her supervisor she had to step away from her screen for 5 minutes, not because of the volume, because of how organized it was. In 12 years, she reportedly said, "I've seen dirty money. I've never seen dirty architecture." And then they found the payments ledger. Badge numbers. Not names, just numbers. And beside each number, monthly deposits, disguised as consulting fees, aviation security consultants, traffic analysis contractors, 14 airport staff, and 1 entry that made the room go silent. 1 badge number traced back to Daniel Mercer, $24,000 a month. For 11 months, $264,000 total. Every payment arriving the week after a major Sinaloa shipment cleared Terminal 7 without inspection. But Mercer wasn't working alone. The blueprint file referenced a secondary authorization chain, someone with federal clearance above airport authority level. Someone identified only by a code name, Cardinal. Pause for a second. Guess who Cardinal is? Because the answer comes in 60 seconds. 5:23 a.m. Joint Task Force Command Center, San Antonio, Texas. The digital map on the main screen showed 44 red markers pulsing across Texas, Houston, El Paso, Laredo, San Antonio, Lubbock, Amarillo. Not a cartel network, a system. 1,200 federal agents mobilized, 60 SWAT teams, 18 Black Hawk helicopters, DIA tactical units sweeping truck corridors along I-35. Ice strike teams hitting border-adjacent logistics hubs. U.S. Army surveillance assets tasked to 3 known smuggling corridors. Simultaneous raids across the state. A desert superlab outside Odessa, producing 500 kilograms of methamphetamine weekly, breached and destroyed in under 4 minutes. A cartel-linked luxury compound outside Austin. 5 senior Sinaloa logistics coordinators arrested. A border tunnel system beneath a commercial property in Laredo, 340 meters long. Equipped with rail tracks and ventilation. Mapped, documented, and collapsed. A human trafficking transit house in McAllen. 47 victims rescued, including 11 minors. A migrant smuggling convoy on Highway 83 intercepted, 12 smugglers detained. Total seizures across all operations, 8.4 tons of narcotics. $67 million in cash and seized assets. 340 arrests. 89 firearms. 14 armored vehicles, and then the final blueprint server decrypted. The operation was a success. One senior DIA commander told his team. 340 arrests, 8.4 tons seized, Mercer in custody. It's over. It wasn't over, because what analysts found on that final server partition made the previous 14 months look like a warm-up. Cardinal wasn't a cartel contact. Cardinal was retired Brigadier General Howard Voss, former federal border security liaison, holder of active top-secret clearance, and the man who had personally lobbied 3 years ago for Terminal 7's expanded pre-clearance authority. the man who had designed the very inspection protocols that Mercer had been exploiting. The architect of the corridor. Not Mercer's handler, Mercer's creator. This next part, I need you to focus, because this is where it gets terrifying. The blueprint file wasn't a ledger. It was a contingency archive. 23 police officers across 4 Texas cities. 7 Border Patrol agents. 4 sitting judges. 11 state legislators. Every name. Every payment. Every recorded call. All of it documented not by investigators, but by Voss himself. Insurance. A dead man's switch, preloaded and encrypted, set to auto-release to 14 media organizations if Voss ever lost access to the server for more than 72 hours. The methods were surgical. Border Patrol agents with routes quietly adjusted during convoy windows. Falsified patrol logs creating invisible safe corridors. A Laredo district judge who had dismissed 9 narcotics cases in 18 months, each one involving a Sinaloa-connected defendant. Internal raid schedules leaked 48 hours in advance, twice. Evidence that walked out of a Dallas evidence locker and was never recovered. At a federal courthouse in Houston, a deputy U.S. Marshal watched his own precinct captain escorted out in handcuffs. He didn't speak to the press. He stood in the parking garage for 20 minutes before going back inside. This wasn't a few bad apples, said the lead FBI task force commander in a closed briefing later that day. This was a parallel system. A second force. One that answered to the cartel, not the Constitution. General Voss was arrested at his San Antonio home at 6:44 a.m. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The file had already said everything. The network ran deeper than Texas. Trucking routes operating under fake agricultural permits moved product north through Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. Port contacts in Houston with compromised dock inspectors. Shipping lane manifests falsified at origin. Way stations conveniently closed for maintenance during convoy passage windows. This network moved an estimated 4.2 tons of narcotics per week across 11 states, without triggering a single federal alert. Daniel Mercer was formally charged on 34 federal counts. General Voss faced espionage and racketeering charges. 340 cartel members were in custody. The tunnels were sealed. The shell companies frozen. The network was dismantled. Justice was served. Or so they thought. Because buried in the final partition of the blueprint file was one folder they almost missed. Dated 3 weeks before the raid. Titled Phase 2. Inside it, 3 new cities. 3 new airport cargo corridors. 3 new sets of pre-authorized clearance codes. And 3 names the FBI had never seen before. The Iron Corridor hadn't been stopped. It had been franchised. And the next generation was already operational. They didn't just infiltrate the system, they redesigned it. And shutting down one network just revealed how many more were waiting. In Texas alone, 2,400 overdose deaths were recorded last year. 61% involved fentanyl from networks linked to this corridor. Neighborhoods hollowed out. Families that will never reassemble. 47 victims rescued from that McAllen transit house. But investigators believe more than 200 people processed through that network are still missing. One mother from Fort Worth, whose 19-year-old son died from a fentanyl pill he believed was a painkiller, said, he thought he was taking something to feel better. Someone decided his life was worth less than a shipping invoice. That pill came from a batch cleared through Terminal 7, authorized by Daniel Mercer, protected by Howard Voss. This is not just a crime story. This is a blueprint. It happened here. It is happening elsewhere. And power doesn't always need violence. Sometimes it just needs silence, a badge, and ambition pointed in the wrong direction. If you made it this far, you're seeing what most people scroll past. Tap like so this story reaches more people who need to hear it. Comment expose if you want these investigations.
Okay, that was crime raid channel there out of Texas. I got the press secretary coming up 5 minutes, a 10-minute one. Then I'm gonna do the YouTube lady.
to continue tackling the affordability crisis that Joe Biden created 1 year ago. And the president will be talking about the positive metrics we have seen and moving forward towards making life again more affordable and prosperous for all Americans.
A defiant President Trump is pressing ahead with a new round of tariffs today after really a devastating ruling from the Supreme Court that determined his sweeping emergency trade duties are illegal. This morning, the president announcing on social media that he's raising worldwide tariffs to 15% after signing a 10% global tariff order late Friday. And today, the president continues to lash out at the Supreme Court, calling its 6-3 court decision on his signature economic policy extraordinarily anti-American.
One thing that I heard from that business owner from the shoe store here in Manhattan.
Sorry, you guys, that was CNN news. I got 3 short ones, and then we'll get to the other.
There's no BleachBit server to hide behind. James Comer just promised the full ban in Navarro, cuff and stuff, if Bill and Hillary keep ghosting those Epstein subpoenas. Meanwhile, Jazzy Jasmine, she tried to light Republicans on fire with her gotcha Epstein donors list, only to have it spectacularly explode right in her face. She's now quieter than a Democrat on Hunter's laptop. And something that made me a little irritated, a small group of Republicans tanked their chance to censure Plaskett, all to protect Corey Mills. Many Republicans now furious and say they're going to attempt to throw their own guy under the bus. As always, like the video and subscribe if you're new here. So while Epstein's child trafficking empire detonates across America, the Clintons, who jetted on the Lolita Express just 26 times and partied with Epstein on the island, have gone darker than Hillary's 2016 election night meltdown. 0 statements, 0 outrage, total radio silence from the Clinton Crime Foundation. But the party's over. After Bill and Hillary ghosted Congress like common criminals, Oversight Chairman James Comer just dropped the hammer. Subpoenas for both Clintons with a brutal warning. Show up or pack a toothbrush, because you're going the Bannon Navarro route.
Bill and Hillary Clinton, if they continue to duck you, will you take them to court? Will you try to enforce a subpoena? Will you go the Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro route?
100%. We're going to go that route. We expect to hear from Bill and Hillary Clinton. Look, Donald Trump's answered questions for years about Jeffrey Epstein. Every day he gets asked questions about Epstein, and he answers them in front of the American people. But the Clintons have never responded. They're the one group in this investigation that's never had to answer questions in front of a credible reporter, and they've never certainly answered questions from attorneys or members of Congress. So we expect the Clintons to come in, or I expect the Clintons to be met with the same fate that Bannon and Navarro were met with when the Democrats were in control.
And I'm sure, absolutely sure, Democrats will be standing shoulder to shoulder with Comer on this one. I mean, they practically wrote the rule book. After all, it was Adam Schiff who said this in 2022. Prosecution of those who refuse to comply with a lawful subpoena is vital to ensuring congressional oversight has teeth. Otherwise, Congress cannot function as the founders intended. The balance of power becomes unbalanced, and a corrupt executive can't be held to account. So the million-dollar question now is, what's the shorter sentence for the Clintons? Refusing to comply with the subpoena or actually admitting what they've done? And while Democrats pretend to be the sudden champions of accountability, here comes Eric Swalwell. Yeah, the guy who couldn't even outsmart a Chinese spy, now trying to play Capitol Hill tough guy. Watch him attempt to scare Kristi Noem and Tom Homan like he's running some kind of congressional mafia. Take a look.
And Kristi Noem and Tom Homan, you should familiarize yourself with the 4 corners of this room. Kristi Noem and Tom Homan, get to know that witness chair.
Why is he still
You're going to be
there?
parked in it for a long time. You're going to have a lot of...
Prison Orange is calling the...
Why is he still there?
Ron Mamdani has zero shame in his game. This man will beg for money with a straight face so he can, quote, help with the New York that everyone can afford. Really? Because wait until you see his latest attempt at fundraising. It's embarrassing, to say the least. He literally guilt trips his own supporters for not coughing up what the previous administration raised. Maybe, just maybe, that's because his supporters are the same crowd yelling, tax the rich, while living off programs funded by the rich. Newsflash, if your base doesn't believe in working, they're not exactly donating. You promised to give them handouts, Ron, not take theirs. The irony here, it's thick. And while he's out there digitally panhandling, President Trump is over at the White House delivering historic wins and still managing to troll Joe Biden in between diplomacy and billion-dollar deals. And on top of that, new Epstein drama hits the Democrats today as a vote came to the floor to release the files. Now, before we dive into all that, a huge thank you to our members and everyone supporting us with super thanks. You are the reason this channel stays independent and the reason that I am able to do this full time. You're not just viewers, you're literally powering the mission to get the truth out. So thank you. Also, if you want to support us, all the information you need is below. If you can't, that's totally okay. Liking, sharing, commenting, it all helps more than you know. And we've got a big announcement coming next week for our members and our everyday viewers. So stay tuned for that one. All right, let's dive in. Zohran Mamdani has no shame in his game. You want free stuff? Well, first he needs you to dig deep into those pockets he's been telling you should stay empty.
A lot of these things are new, but one of them is pretty old. Fundraising. You've already been incredible. We've raised more than $1 million in just 2 weeks. Our average donation is around $77, and more than 12,000 of you have donated so far, which is much lower than the last administration's transition. But we're still asking for your help because we need to raise $4 million in total. So January 1st can be the day we start to deliver, not start to prepare. I hope very soon not to have to ask you for money. But until then, I'm asking for you to go to transition2025.com and give whatever you can to help build a New York that everyone can afford.
So the plan is to make New York affordable by everyone paying more. You put your hard-earned money into one big pot, and Zohran gets to hand it out like Santa with a sociology degree. Good luck, New York. Let us know how socialism with a tip jar is working out for you. And if that wasn't enough of a red flag, look who he's endorsing for the New York State Assembly in Queens.
The system of capitalism and racism and white supremacy, etc., have all, and Islamophobia have all been used, to colonize lands, right, to take resources from other people. And so this is like a long trajectory. And we're just seeing the manifestations of that continuation, right, with 9/11.
Did she just blame 9/11 on capitalism and racism? Now, this is a woman who moved to New York just last year after getting a master's in Islamic liberation theology. And this is who Mamdani is picking to help shape policy. Do you not see it? This is the direction he wants to steer New York in. Let's hope voters start waking up before the entire city becomes one giant activist seminar. Meanwhile, Republicans were dealt a major blow today. Texas was ordered to use its old congressional map. Oh my.
Okay, I got one more short one, and I got 4 videos I'm going to play. I'm going to try to get in. They're about 10 to 15 on each one after this short one. This one might be old, but some people might have missed it.
Life. And get this, the shooter has a shocking connection to the man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. Plus, major fireworks in the James Comey case. The federal judge slammed the prosecution today. It was not pretty. Will this case even survive the fallout? Meanwhile, President Trump is taking bold action to tackle affordability for all Americans. This, as Chicago's public schools are exposed for blowing millions of your tax dollars on lavish overseas trips. Safari, anyone? Your money, their vacation. As always, hit that like button. Welcome if you're new here, and make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you never miss the day's top headlines. So we're learning some new and frankly bizarre details about Tyler Crooks, the man who opened fire at President Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Take a listen to this.
This guy, Thomas Crooks, was interested in this furry site, spent a lot of time there, had various images that he liked and reposted, and also gave his pronouns as they, them. But I think the more important part is what the comments, his online comments from, he was very young, I mean, 15, 16, 17, show us about how he became increasingly violent and sort of radicalized against Democrats. He was pro-Trump. And then in January of 2020, he flipped 180 degrees. Something happened to make him become rabidly anti-Trump.
Okay, so then something strange happens in August of 2020. Crooks completely disappears from the internet. Entirely. Poof, gone. And this is a guy who practically lived online. Now you fast forward to July of 2024, he fires 8 shots, kills Corey Compentor, and grazes President Trump. And keep in mind, the man accused of targeting Charlie Kirk also shared this bizarre furry fixation. At some point, you have to start to wonder what exactly is going on in these corners of the internet. Now, here's the former FBI deputy director. This is interesting. Talking about Crook's social media. This was back in July of 2024.
There were over 700 comments posted from this account. Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature.
Now, according to Miranda Devine at the New York Post, that's only half the story, literally. She reports that the FBI left out an entire section of Crook's online activity from January to August of 2020, when he went from aggressively pro-Trump to aggressively anti-Trump. And then suddenly he went completely silent across more than 10 social media platforms. The deputy director giving testimony at the time, he didn't mention any of that, not a word.
It's inexplicable that Paul Abate would give only that first part of the trajectory for the would-be Trump assassin. And, you know, it just led Congress and led the public to think something different about Thomas Crooks than was the reality. I don't understand why Paul Abate would do that. And I think it would be good if Congress could bring him back. And
there are new...
Okay, our TikTok lady news on the day stuff. All right, we got the next one is a new guy or the older guy is on TikTok that we haven't played in a while. It's 10 minutes about Susan Rice. I don't know if you guys seen this one.
Under the Obama administration, national security advisor, and also served in various capacities with Joe Biden, gave an interview on a podcast with Preet Bharara. He is that very liberal federal prosecutor that developed quite a name for himself in New York, going after, I think, targeted a lot of people based on their politics. But nonetheless, it was one of the strangest interviews because she flat out, candidly, with no reservations, sent a message to people who were conservative, Republican, or Trump supporters. And she used Game of Thrones imagery. You've taken the knee to Donald Trump. You have allowed him to bully you. She was talking about the so-called elites in the academic world, in the corporate world, in the institutional world. And we're not going to forget, she says, that you did that. And you better have your documents ready, because when we come back into power, we're going to, the implication was take you to court, make you pay, shake you. I don't know what she was talking about, but it was a direct threat. But here's what's strange about it. Start with Susan Rice herself. If you look back through her latter years with the Obama administration, it was nothing but a complete disaster. She was the one that you remember that the CIA and the Obama administration wheeled out on a Sunday afternoon to explain the Benghazi attack that killed the 4 Americans at the annex and the consulate. 5 times she told the American people that those attacks were spontaneous and they were because of some right-wing Coptic video maker who caused it all. That was not true. That was a pre-planned, either an Al-Qaeda or ISA, or some type of radical Islamic pre-planned assault. People knew what they were doing. They were well armed. They were well organized. Why did she go out 5 times and mislead the American people? Because the Obama administration had been warned prior that their security was too lax, and they did not want to give the impression that that attack was preventable, which it was. She was the one that also assured us Americans that when Obama issued those red lines and said, if Bashar Assad and his Syrian forces move WMD around or still have it, that's going to be intolerable, i.e. I'm going to take it out. When they didn't do that and they backed out and we knew they had it, she lied to the American people and said essentially that they no longer had WMD. Remember also she wrote just wrapping up her career, she wrote a little memo to herself in the last weeks of the Obama administration about Michael Flynn. She went to a meeting, and it was pretty clear in that meeting they had planned to subvert the incoming administration with the false narrative of Russian collusion, and that somehow Mike Flynn, the National Security Advisor designate, had been colluding with the Russians, but that was not true. But then she wrote a fake memo to herself suggesting that they hadn't really done that it was all up and up. And then, of course,
how's this one,
she
guys?
and others had requested the unmasking of people related with Trump in otherwise confidential files. So she doesn't have a good record. That's why she didn't have a high-profile position in the Biden administration. But there's also some real problems with what she said. She never said to corporate America, to the academic world, to the institutional world, to the political world, what they had done wrong. She just said, we're going to come back. People don't like Trump. It's our turn to come back. We're not going to play by the old rules. No. We're going to be tough. You better get your But what had they done? What had they done? If she's implying they let people off or they laid people off that were associated with DEI, that was in accordance with the Supreme Court ruling barring race-based preferences in academic life. If she means that Donald Trump does not have the authority to issue an executive order stopping DEI, the whole idea of executive orders goes back to the beginning almost of the Republic. But more importantly, Barack Obama was the one who said, I have a pen and I have a phone and I'm going to use it. And that's when he lost control of the Congress, and he issued, up until that time, almost the greatest number of executive orders. So if she's not going to tell us why that anybody committed a felony or misdemeanor, and yet she's going to punish them, that doesn't sound too legitimate. How does she know, secondly, that she's going to come back into power? The polls are very volatile. Donald Trump has made, as we've talked before, a vast investment in the economy. Inflation is down. Unemployment is down. GDP is solid. Foreign investment is at record levels. So is energy production. And when the big, beautiful bill is fully enacted and filters its way through the economy, you're going to see enormous stimuli given reductions in the tax code, reductions in the deductions that you have to make for the IRS, no tax on tips, etc. It's going to have an enormous effect, and it's going to come into effect before the midterms. We don't know what the world is going to look like abroad, in Ukraine, in Cuba, in Iran. It may be that Donald Trump is able to solve 2 or 3 or all of them. November's a long way away, so I wouldn't be so sure, Susan Rice, that you will win the November elections, much less if you were alluding, as I think you were, to 2028. If you heard Marco Rubio's speech to the Munich Security Conference, and you've seen J.D. Vance in the 2024 election take down almost every hostile reporter that interviewed him, they are going to be a very formidable team. And I don't see anything quite like that with Gavin Newsom. I don't see it with AOC, especially after performance at the Munich Security Conference. I don't think Pete Buttigieg is a viable candidate. So we've seen Kamala Harris, very uninspiring. Maybe Josh Shapiro, but given the anti-Semitic nature of the new Democratic Socialist Party, I doubt, as we saw with the vice presidential selection in 2024, I doubt that he would have a chance to be the nominee of the new Democratic Party. And finally, when you talk about retribution, where have you been, Susan Rice? Who were the people who tried to take Donald Trump off 25, 26 state ballots, unprecedented? Who were the people who, first time in history, impeached a president twice? Who were the people who tried him as a private citizen when he was out of office in the Senate, tried to convict him? Who were the people that were behind the Letitia James frivolous lawsuit that tried to bankrupt him with almost a $500 million fine because he took a loan out with the Deutsche Bank, and they claimed that he overvalued the assets, which the Deutsche Bank said he didn't. They paid the interest on time to the profit of the bank, who had no complaint. Who was Alvin Bragg trying to shoehorn a federal offense onto a state law and said that Donald Trump's non-disclosure with Stormy Daniels was a federal campaign violation? Who were the people behind the crazy E. Jean Carroll persecution lawsuit that may have cost Donald Trump $90 million? Who were the people behind Jack Smith, who was knee deep along with the FBI and knew about that with Merrick Garland, the raiding the Mar-a-Lago, the home of Donald Trump, and the idea that Donald Trump violated some confidential agreement with the government when an archival dispute when Joe Biden had taken materials that were confidential and classified from his days in the Senate in 3 or 4 much less secure places. Who was behind all that? Who was behind Fannie Willis when a person calls the registrar and says, I know there's votes there, find them, as a lot of candidates do to every registrar when they feel that they're not adequately looking for votes that have been cast. There was a lot of things to be suspicious about in Georgia and turned that into a felony. All of those prosecutors were politically minded, biased, and ultimately found themselves in their own ethical dilemmas. But who did that? My point is, Susan Rice, your party has already taken out retribution. You were the ones that politicized the Department of Justice. You were the ones going back to 2015 and 16 with Russian collusion, 2020 with laptop disinformation. Your entire career of the Democratic Party, your career, Hillary Clinton's career, Barack Obama, has been to destroy Donald Trump. So we don't need lectures on retribution. You've already tried to practice retribution against Trump. And I don't think you're going to be in a position of power necessarily in the Congress in 2026. And I have a pretty good idea you won't come back to power in 2028. But otherwise, you really displayed your true nature and put your cards on the table. And I don't think that your opponents are going to be naive once they understand what your true intentions are, which are completely vengeful and incoherent. Susan Rice.
Okay. We haven't played that guy. First time we played him, actually, I think. Haven't heard him in a long time. Okay, our YouTube lady.
They just fired, and the police are doing nothing. I lost my job. That was my only way to make money to pay my bills.
A DoorDash driver showing a naked customer accusing him of harassment, but getting arrested herself. 2 months later, she's facing the charges.
This whole thing is insane. So sometimes, admittedly, I can be a little late to the party, but that doesn't mean that I don't have some things to say, especially when there has been a major development. Today, we're talking about Livy Rose Henderson, also known on TikTok as That DoorDash Girl. No, that's not her TikTok name, but people are just simply calling her That DoorDash Girl. And who exactly is That DoorDash Girl? Well, Livy Rose is a DoorDasher that back in October of 2025 posted a delivery that she dropped off to a DoorDash customer, and she filmed him lying naked on his couch in his own residence and then posted it to TikTok claiming that she was a victim of sexual assault. Because there are certain words that I can't say on YouTube, I will just simply refer to this in the future as SA, but that's what she claimed. She claimed that witnessing this man half naked in his own residence when she dropped off the DoorDash order was at a bare minimum harassment. This post went viral, especially when she talked about being fired from DoorDash. She even went to the police to see what could be done about her harassment allegation. And that didn't end up very good for her because, you guys, today we're talking about the fact that that DoorDash girl got arrested. So if you happen to have missed that original viral video, I'm going to show it to you now. That way you can see exactly what happened before all of the chaos ensued. So the caption that she put on her original TikTok video says, A man named Austin orders DoorDash, selects the option to have the order left at his door, sees his DoorDasher, me, and a female name, falls asleep on his couch with his pants and underwear to his ankles and his front door wide open in 59-degree weather. So this is what I see when I have to leave the order. And she full on filmed him lying naked, or naked from the waist down, in his own residence. And she posted this to TikTok. She showed the outside of his house. People could figure out where he lived. She even gave his first name of Austin, and the internet exploded.
Here's an update for anybody who's interested. I commented, but my comment's getting buried in my comment section. I reported this to DoorDash over 12 hours ago, and they're supposed to call me back, which is strange because I've reported a couple less serious incidents before, and they called me back within 1 to 2 hours for those reports. So I don't know what's going on there, but I didn't report this to the police last night because I wasn't sure of DoorDash's process for like SA, or if this was even reportable to the police in New York State because he was in his home. But after so many people told me to report it to the police, I did.
I don't know, okay? I can't believe she even did that. That's illegal. You can't film while you're working.
And I called the non-emergency line, and they sent a police officer over to speak to me in person and watch the video that I have. And then he asked me to email to him, and he asked me if I want to press charges, like what do I want to come from this? And I said, yeah, if there are charges to press, I would prefer that because I don't want this to happen to somebody else again. And he understood that, the police officer. And then he went back out to his car, and then he came back to me and he told me, like, this is pretty much verbatim. It's not verbatim, but like it's the point that he said he's not sure if that there are charges that can be pressed at this point because he was inside of his house. And specifically, he said it's not like he came up to his door with it out or like his window with it out or whatever. But it's like, come on now. Like, how likely is it that it's cold outside? It's pretty chilly. Your ceiling fan is on. You got all your lights on in your house. You got your front door open, right? You just ordered DoorDash 15 minutes ago. And within 15 minutes of ordering DoorDash and it getting delivered to your front door, you're asleep on the couch with your pants and your underwear to your ankles, your front door wide open, your lights on, it's freezing outside. Like, come on now.
We're going to continue on for what she says after this. We'll get to all of that. But first, let me show you what happened and what she posted after DoorDash finally got back with her about her SA experience. Hey, you guys, I just wanted to pop in here really quick to let you know that I have launched a brand new body cam reaction channel.
So you said you have a knife up your...
Yes, I do. You want to come get it?
So if you've been enjoying the body cam reaction videos that I've posted over here on this channel, I'm going to start posting all new videos over on that channel with the same kind of energy and even more chaos. You'll find the link to my newest channel down in the video description. So I would really, really appreciate it if you would go give it a follow because there's new videos over there right now.
Hey guys, so DoorDash just deactivated me 2 days after I reported my... Hey guys, I just lost my job and they won't tell me why. They're supposed to send an email immediately after deactivation providing you the reason why and a link to appeal, and they didn't. So I contacted support and they made me sit on the phone with them for 50 minutes just to tell me that they can't tell me the reason why and I have to just go ahead and appeal without knowing why. So my chances of getting my account back, they have my money in that account. I was working. I was literally working and they deactivated me. This is related. They just punished me for posting about my while door dashing. They just fired me and the police are doing nothing. I lost my job and that was my only way to make money to pay my bills.
Okay, so now let's fast forward a little bit. The internet back in October of 2025 lost their minds. People were rallying for her. People were saying things like, get a lawyer, sue DoorDash, Sue the police department for not protecting you. We're with you. Let's get some pitchforks and go storm a castle somewhere. But then I think she realized reporting this to police was the wrong thing for her to do, because this is what happened in November.
Seen around the world landing the person who posted in an Oswego courtroom today.
A DoorDash driver showing a naked customer accusing him of harassment, but getting arrested herself. 2 months later, she's facing the charges. News Channel 9's Andrew Donovan was there for her arraignment.
The Oswego City judge allowing News Channel 9 to record the proceedings. The first look at 23-year-old Olivia Henderson outside her popular TikTok page.
Their front door was wide open, and they were within eyesight of the front door, laying on the couch indecently exposed to me.
This is her last post, published October 26th, 2 weeks after her now deleted video causing this controversy. Working as a driver for delivery service DoorDash, Henderson claimed she was dropping off a food order when through the customer's door, saw him on the couch naked. After posting her footage, she reported the incident to Oswego police as sexual harassment.
Some of the claims that she had made on social media after the fact were not in fact true.
Investigators determined the man, drunkenly unconscious on his couch, did nothing wrong. But he found out lewd images of him were published for thousands of TikTok users to see. So police criminally charged Henderson with 2 counts related to unlawful surveillance. Court documents accuse her of recording, quote, intimate parts without consent when he had a reasonable expectation of privacy.
So that's right. Filing that police report and posting that video and trying to have people rally behind her on TikTok came back to bite her in the ass, because what he did to her was not assault at all. It wasn't even harassment. He was intoxicated and he fell asleep in his own house on his own couch. And yes, he had the door open. It was 59 degrees outside. It doesn't mean that because it might be a little chilly outside, someone's not entitled to have their door open. Maybe he didn't want to run his air conditioning and his house was hot. When you are in your own house, you have privacy, or you're supposed to have certain expectation of privacy in your own residence. And yeah, he got drunk and he passed out on his couch. That didn't give her the right to film him naked and post him on the internet. Not only that, but she posted the outside of his house. She posted his first name, and then she accused him of assaulting her or harassing her and reported her to the police department to try to press charges. This whole thing is insane.
I guess just first, have you ever seen a case like this? It just seems so bizarre about kind of the twists and turns that got us to this point.
So I've never seen anything that is exactly analogous with this case, but we have seen kind of similar cases where somebody kind of surreptitiously records somebody in a state of undress, and then does some sort of posting of it, whether it's on social media, whether it's, on a blog or whatever, that kind of runs afoul of this statute. So it's the particular contours of this, the DoorDash aspect of it, and whether or not she was invited in or lured in, that I haven't really seen before. But this is not that far afield of what we can expect.
When it comes to someone coming to your house, and what does the law say about, she has her camera phone and she sees something, she takes a picture of it. That's really, I know that there's other parts of it that we'll figure out how it plays out. But I guess as from the homeowner's perspective, like, what are his rights in this situation when technically you've ordered food and someone is coming to your house? So in some ways, could you argue that she was invited into the home, and does that matter at all?
So certainly there's an aspect of this where, as a DoorDash person who's making a delivery, she's invited to be there. However, a homeowner has a reasonable expectation of privacy in their home, certainly. And just because somebody is invited as a delivery person, who has the option to leave whatever the delivery is at the front door, ring the doorbell, and that kind of satisfies their obligation for it. No DoorDash person is obligated to enter into somebody's home, especially if they're passed out on the couch and they're not opening the door to let them in. that is where it kind of transitions from she did nothing wrong to she finds this individual in a clear state of undress. It appears alcohol was involved. He's passed out on a couch. And she decides to take her phone out and, take pictures, which already is something that you're really not allowed to do. And then on top of that, she then posts to her kind of social media pages, which then it becomes kind of publicly accessible, which just kind of compounds her error.
I mean, so if you think about it this way, think about a peeping Tom. In this situation, she is the peeping Tom. She filmed him from the outside of his house while he was nude. And then she claimed that he harassed her. So this is where I say something that a lot of you guys might disagree with me. And I am not at all victim blaming. I am not at all saying that her feelings of possibly being harassed are invalid. But I do think that as a society now, we are so quick to be a victim of something, or to think that somebody has ulterior motives to harm us. She walked into this situation to deliver an order, saw this setup, and immediately thought that this was intentional on his behalf. And this is where I'm going to get a little bit lewd and a little bit gross. He was not laying on the couch, pleasuring himself, looking at her as she dropped the order off. He was asleep. He was intoxicated. He was passed out. And she just happened to look in the door and see him naked. Just because he's lying naked in his own house with the door open does not mean that he intentionally set this up to entice you or harass you or assault you. I'm sorry. That's not what that means. And the fact that that is immediately where her mind went, I think is a big.
Okay. That was, yeah, people that do DoorDash, I can't believe they allow even you're supposed to be delivering food. How come you're on the telephone? I don't understand. They're on the telephone and you're delivering food. You're working. I don't get that.
Dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere.
So after the Iran talks completely imploded, that country's regime is learning what happens when you pursue nuclear weapons and threaten the entire world. And as the United States and Israel dismantle the military capabilities of this dictatorship, the great people of Iran now have the opportunity to take back their country and determine their own future, which the regime here is still trying to hold on to as they refuse to surrender.
On the second day of this joint U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, Israeli jets pounded what Israeli officials described as military targets in central Tehran. Two officials with direct knowledge of current intelligence tell NBC News the Iranian government no longer controls all of its military.
This was a massive, wildly bold daytime attack. It caught the senior leadership off guard on a Saturday morning during Ramadan and on Shabbat in the daytime. We hit the senior leaders right out of the gate.
Today's military strikes by the United States and Israel mark a catastrophic escalation in an illegal act of war, of aggression.
Mr. Mamdani, I know maybe you and many other people, they hate President Trump, but believe me, this is not the right time to shift your hatred and your anger from President Trump to the people of Iran. Innocent people.
By the way, the Europeans sitting this one out. In fact, the UK, as well as France, says don't use our bases. I don't think this administration is going to forget that.
When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.
So if you wanted proof this is not going to turn into a long, drawn-out conflict, look at this. Iran's supreme leader was being tracked for months, and the U.S. and Israel immediately went after Iran's leadership and high-value targets first. And what nobody's talking about is even if this regime does decide to retaliate and dig in, it's not going to change a thing. And even though Iran has already appointed a new supreme leader, President Trump has promised round-the-clock strikes until the regime surrenders. And this regime was already the weakest it's ever been before this operation started. Prior to any bombs being dropped, their currency had collapsed, people had been protesting in the streets for months, and now their government and military are in complete shambles. On top of that, over a year ago when Iran's nuclear program was wiped out, the US and Israel already saw what retaliation looked like, and the regime was stronger then than they were before this operation started, and the conflict over there might not take as long as some people think. Because the United States did not get into this conflict with any plans of invading Iran or occupying it. And as US and Israeli missiles and air power take down the regime's offensive capabilities once and for all, the invasion force required to reclaim this great country is already inside of it on its streets, celebrating in many cases the fact that their leaders who do not represent them are no longer in charge. And that brings us to the real reason this whole operation kicked off as suddenly as it had. These talks and negotiations with this regime had completely failed, and everyone knew it. Iran's leaders refused to even acknowledge the need to give up their nuclear program and offensive ballistic missiles, both of which they were working on secretly while dragging out a diplomatic process doomed to never succeed. But by refusing to cooperate, the regime may have done the world a favor because they were not negotiating with a US president who wanted to see them stay in power for generations. And everyone knows that the bad faith tactics they've used in the past meant that any deal they would agree to in the near future would definitely be broken, totally eliminating once again the future prosperity of the people of Iran. So those are students reacting to military operations against their leadership. Now, let me ask you a question. Where do students get their beliefs from? They get them from their parents. They get them from their community. And it's never happened before in world history where a population of free people who love and adore their leadership react like this when that leadership engages in conflict with a hostile foreign power. This is not the reaction of a population who felt that their leadership represented them. This is not the reaction of a population who feels they're under attack. They feel like they are being rescued. This is a rescue mission for the people of Iran, and they know it. But you know who doesn't know it?
Today's military strikes by the United States and Israel mark a catastrophic escalation in an illegal act of war, of aggression.
The only way you can think like this is if you believe that the regime in Iran was a legitimate government that represented all of the people there and
Well, Carol, we have to stay out another 20 minutes. Billy Bean just came out.
their interests, and that when the regime is attacked, the people dancing and celebrating on the streets actually don't believe that. They actually believe that they themselves are in jeopardy somehow, which reveals the best way to be on the wrong side of history is to not understand it.
I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I live in New York, Mr. Mamdani. You are more than welcome to come to one of my safe house. I know maybe you and many other people, they hate President Trump, but believe me, this is not the right time to shift your hatred and your anger from President Trump to the people of Iran, innocent people.
It's so crazy. It's like the people that despise America's president will align themselves with one of the most evil regime dictatorships in history, which already does not exist and has completely collapsed, just to stand against a president they don't like. Isn't that fascinating? Meanwhile, we've got an entire country of people here who, for the first time in half a century, have prosperity on the horizon. This never would have happened just a few years ago. It was an impossibility, but today it looks like it's going to be a reality. And you've got to ask yourself something as you watch this video coming out of Iran right now. If you were living in a country and felt that it was under attack and that your life was going to be worse in the near future, why would you react like this? That just wouldn't make sense. This is the distinction that people meandering about a long, drawn-out conflict just don't seem to understand, because every single person in Iran's military has a friend, a relative, or a family member who who's happy things are changing for the better. And that's got to make you wonder how effective Iran's military can actually be in a situation like this when they aren't being propped up and sustained by leaders who wish to appease them.
The contrast in leadership could not be more clear. Barack Obama and Joe Biden sent pallets of cash, American taxpayer dollars, in a failed attempt to buy the Iranian regime's compliance with a weak and ineffective deal.
And that brings us to another very important point. Appeasing Iran does nothing for world peace and world stability. And if you appease Iran, since it's part of the puppet state sanctions evading apparatus of Russia and China, you also appease Russia and China, who are waging wars in places like Ukraine. And that is a disaster.
Almost everything that he's doing that seems herky-jerky has an ultimate strategic purpose, is to diminish the power of the Chinese and to turn Russia and China against each other, and to have a cultural revolution, counter-revolution in the United States that makes our adversaries think that we are serious and dangerous, whether it's closing the border or having immigration reform or...
Right. So this entire operation, it's not just about liberating people who've been trapped in their own country for 50 years. It's not just about stopping a dangerous regime from being able to strike America. No, it's also about disabling and taking away the power of America's enemies. And look at this. China is very upset because who do they buy illegal sanctioned oil from? They buy it from Iran. China was buying oil from Iran and from Venezuela, and now those two options are off the table, revealing that there is a lot more at play in this operation than most people are even being told.
We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated.
A couple of things. Obviously, this operation was planned to begin at night, but given the opportunity that these leaders were meeting, the Israelis contacted the Americans and said, we have a real opportunity here, even though it's Shabbat Saturday. Normally, they don't do things like this on a Saturday. It was Ramadan. We really have an opportunity to achieve something they wanted all along, which is the degree of tactical surprise. And they were able to achieve that. And what a way to begin an operation, by taking down the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, and also 40 of his cohorts. Listen, the Israelis have started something here that's new to warfare. Warfare is fundamentally a test of wills. And you're using force to break your opponent's will. And the sooner you can do it, the better you do it, the better it is. And this is the third time they've done this. They did it with Hezbollah, decapitating their leaders. Hezbollah never recovered from that. Even though they have thousands of missiles, they never fired one of them in support of Iran during Israel's 12-day war against the Iranians. When I asked the general, why haven't they used those missiles? An Israeli general, he said, sir, we have broken their will.
This is a fascinating take on what's going on, because if you look at the way things are working in Iran right now, the leadership of that country, the command and control structure that tells everybody what to do, it's not there anymore. So if you're an Iranian military operations manager at, let's say, a missile base or something, and you launch some missiles at a pre-planned target or list of targets, well, now what do you do after that happens? Do you wait around in that piece of infrastructure for it to be targeted by an airstrike? Do you leave? Do you abandon your post? And if you make a phone call and you call your bosses and ask them what to do, nobody's going to answer the phone. So this regime's ability to retaliate, it's limited. It's on borrowed time. And this cannot be a long, drawn-out conflict at all. At the exact same time, we've got the Iranian people in the streets who've been in the streets for months, friends, family members, relatives of these very service members that are supposed to what? Fight for a regime that has been oppressing their country for a very long time, that is not very popular at all, and now won't even answer the phone. Think about that.
And that's the reality. And here we're repeating it again. During the 12-day war, remember, they took down the senior military leaders and the nuclear scientists. An Israeli debriefer indicated to me that impacted 60% of Iran's capability to retaliate against Israel during that 12-day war.
Yeah.
Decapitating the leadership and the command and control, the disruption that something like that has caused. And here we are seeing this again, and executed so brilliantly in what it's achieving.
You can't wage an organized, modern, conventional conflict without leadership. That just doesn't happen. A military needs a goal. It needs an objective. You can't just have every man for themselves out there wondering what they're supposed to do next, making up their own plans. That falls apart, especially when the adversary in this case has intelligence, air superiority, eyes in the sky, eyes on the ground, spies within the country. You've got total coordination on one end, and you've got total chaos on the other end. And on the other end, remember, you've got protests. You've got an economy that's already collapsed. You've got people that want freedom. This is not sustainable for the Iranian regime. Doesn't matter that they've appointed a new leader. Doesn't matter that they've got somebody out there who says, we're never going to give up. This thing right here, it has to give up.
They're going to take advantage of that and work on the entire infrastructure that sustains the regime, the political infrastructure, the legislature, the National Security Council, other agencies, and then the security and military infrastructure that sustains this regime. They're going to take it apart systematically and deliberately, plus the missiles, the Navy bases, etc., to decapitate their hardware and their military capability, to include the defense industrial base. Could last 2 to 3 weeks, but if this regime capitulates, in a sense, gives up, it could happen a lot sooner.
And you know something, that's what the U.S. is angling for here, because every time President Trump has come out and addressed this situation, he's always said, look, if you're in the Iranian military, lay down your arms, surrender peacefully, give up, and you'll be given total immunity. He's giving people a way out to say, look, I can flee this collapsing establishment over here. I don't have to lay it all down and stick with these guys until the end. I can flee. I can join the rest of my country in calling for their replacement, as we'll call it, and nothing's going to happen to me. This gives people who might be manning some post or some missile battery somewhere the ability to say, you know what, I was just following orders. I was just doing what I thought was my job. And you know what? I am totally willing to walk away. And that's already happening. To think that the entire Iranian military is loyal during this situation is a foolish way to think. There is definitely not unity here from the Iranians, especially now that their command and control structure no longer exists and is able to tell people what to do. There is no repercussion for disobeying orders that don't come from anyone when you call and nobody picks up the phone.
I've been told by a couple of senior officials there are various off-ramps depending on what they see, conditions on the ground. I want to put up this map of Iran's retaliatory strikes so far. Not surprising that obviously Israel, a major target here with many missiles, that a lot of them have been taken out by the defenses. But what's surprising, I think, is some of the civilian targets in the Gulf Arab neighbors. And we'll put up some video of some of these strikes.
What kind of retaliation is this? Iran gets attacked in a surprise operation by the United States and Israel, and they fire off a bunch of missiles into their neighbors' countries, hitting not military targets, but civilian targets, sadly, in these countries. All that does is show you how isolated this regime wants to be. These guys are not the friend of anybody in the Middle East. They are not somehow representative of the majority of thinking in the Middle East at all. They're attacking people who had nothing to do with this operation as some sort of last grasp of power projection before this whole regime implodes on itself. And remember, whatever strikes have been carried out initially, those were going to be the most organized, the most pre-planned, the most premeditated strikes, with a list of targets to pick from. They have not turned the tide. They have not changed anything. They have not saved this regime. And now all of the military assets in the country that are in a position to maybe launch a follow-up wave of strikes, well, they don't know what to do at this point because there's no one to tell them what to do. And the only orders they are getting are, hey, lay down your arms, surrender peacefully, and you'll be given total immunity. That's the instruction they're being given. It's just not coming from their own government.
What do you think is the strategy there, General? It seems like it has stiffened the spine of those Gulf Arab allies, and they're actually getting the GCC together to say, almost if you attack one of us, you're talking.
Right, they attack their neighbors,
almost like a NATO charter.
Yeah, I mean, I think their motivation there was to threaten this attack, and obviously they're following through it. Remember, they didn't want the Arab states supporting this attack in any way, shape, or form. And last time, some of them provided fighter jets, and many of them provided overflights, etc., of their territory. They didn't want any of that to be done. But the reality is those states, many of them have our defensive systems that they're using. And you're absolutely right. I mean, publicly, they were against any operation taking place against the Iranians. Why? Because they were trying to forestall an attack. Privately, they were all in.
That's very important. So what the general here tells us is that these Gulf allies that were caught up in Iran's retaliation strikes, publicly, they're saying, you know what, let's not do anything. Let's wait. He says that privately they were all in on this. He also makes the very important point that what do these guys use for their military hardware? They're using U.S. equipment that connects with U.S. satellites and requires U.S. contractors like Lockheed Martin to come and fix these things up and maintain them. So their entire defense industry is U.S. based. While Iran, on the other hand, what are they using? They're using Russian and Chinese military hardware. They are aligned with our enemies, these countries that they've recently attacked, who said publicly, we don't want to see anything happen here. We don't think this is a good idea. Those guys are totally aligned with the U.S. anyways, and what that makes it look like is these retaliatory strikes in this first wave were like a revenge attack from a regime that knows it's on its way out. This is not the kind of attack that they would send out to try and accomplish anything other than a tit for tat, like, hey, we know you supported this against us, so take this while we're on our way out the door. That's what we're looking at here. And what we're not looking at is a coordinated response from a regime that has the ability to dig in and wage any kind of resistance to this and preserve itself. This is not going to be a long, drawn-out thing.
I mean, it could change the region dramatically.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're in the very early stages of this, and a lot can happen. General, just talk for a second about the decision-making here by President Trump and what that took in the face of naysayers in his own party.
Naysayers,
and what it potentially means for other countries like China and Russia, and what it signals to the rest of the world.
Bad news for Russia.
Yes, well, I think there's been a lot of talk about what options and the rest of it, but the truth is there's only been one major plan, and that is the comprehensive plan that we're seeing unfolded with the Israelis and the Americans, who are the two most proven militaries in the world, actually working together in a common objective here. So that is one thing. The other thing is certainly people have been trying to talk the president out of doing this, worried about the day after, the ambiguity that surrounds that, the chaos in Iran as a result of it, the chaos in the region, the war will be expanded. The president looked at all of those negative things, just looking at the number of rockets and missiles they have. And if that's all you're going to look at, we're likely going to have a number of casualties as a result of it. We may still have some, to be sure. And you can come up with sort of a negative answer. He listened to all of that. But at the end of the day, I think his motivation was pretty simple. He saw that the regime was weak. But what was the regime doing? Recovering their missiles as rapidly as possible. They made a decision to recover their nuclear program.
Right. That's the thing. As these talks were taking place, what was the leadership doing? They were covering their nuclear sites with sand. They were trying to bury them and protect them and harden them against prying eyes and against any potential action that might try to take them out. Now, why would they do that if there was nothing in there that they hadn't been working on or hadn't been trying to revitalize in some capacity? Why are they still out there building offensive ballistic missiles while negotiating and saying, yes, we want to negotiate with the United States, but at the same time, we're never going to give up our missiles. No, we need those for defense, even though they're a long-range offensive weapon. Right. But what do you think is going to happen over the next few days and weeks? I will see you in the next video.
I want to try to get Billy Bean in.
Good afternoon,
so we don't have to play it. So we don't have to play it tonight. It's 20 minutes. Actually, 19 minutes. 19 minutes.
It was about 1 p.m. A flash update. Rest in Peace is now up to 4. And the U.S. military has made 1,000 plus hits. It's believed that the Dimona nuclear power plant in Israel has been hit and radiation is leaking. We had 3 F-15s shot down in Kuwait, according to CENTCOM, by friendly fire by the Kuwaiti military. And in the UAE, we're hearing they demanded all U.S. military leave the UAE today. So let's get started. I'd like to say thank you to Jonelle Enterprises for extra support of my channel. So we have this going on this morning. We know yesterday we had reports that Iran had closed the Strait of Hormuz through, which is about in this area, through which 20% of the world's oil supply flows. So expect oil to go up. We had Iran making major hits on Qatar in the last 24 hours. One of those hits did massive damage to a U.S. military base located in Qatar. And we're hearing this morning that Qatar has cut its LNG production, and that immediately the price of LNG went up 57%. And we're also hearing that overnight, 3 U.S. jets, F-15s, were allegedly shot down by friendly fire over Kuwait. Some analysts project maybe 1, but question 3. However, CENTCOM states in their statement this morning that it was due to friendly fire by Kuwait. All 6 pilots, because each F-15 carries 2, were able to eject and are reported to be in stable condition. And we're hearing that there's some disruption between the U.S. and Qatar. And this morning, the UAE also, it's being put forth by U.S. Intel because of the hits by Iran on the UAE, that the UAE demanded all U.S. planes out of the UAE, and that 50 U.S. planes were in the air this morning leaving the UAE. From BP Earthwatch, we have this. Iran continues to make hits on its neighbors who did not put forth hits on Iran, and also continues to hammer Israel. And we're hearing that the Hezbollah, a proxy for Iran, has been launching attacks on Israel and Middle East neighbors from Lebanon. So Lebanon is being hit this morning by Israel. From Dabu 77, we have that a massive hit took place yesterday by Iran on the UAE and Bahrain. Iran is targeting civilian infrastructure and airports in its neighbors, despite the fact that its neighbors did not strike Iran. We have this from the Navy Channel. In the last 24 hours, or over the weekend, the U.S. military put forth over 1,000 strikes on 1,000 plus targets inside Iran, and that they have been hitting air defense in Iran, radars in Iran, ammunition depots, missile batteries, buildings, and the U.S. is making these hits on Iran in the air and from ships. So that's going on. And we heard yesterday, I put out that Iran had sank 4 ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the first ship Iran sank was its own Navy ship. We also are hearing that Iran, during the early morning hours, sank a U.S. tanker. The other 2 ships are unknown. We're really not getting details about the ships so far. However, it appears that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. The insurance companies for various ships and tankers overnight went up 50%. So it's believed that the majority of shippers and tankers will just wait while this is going on. And we also have this. Yeah. So we have many things going on. We have Israeli News Live last night reporting that in Israel, the Dimona nuclear power plant had been hit by Iran and was leaking radiation. I just heard this morning a report by the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Association, and no mention was made of the Dimona nuclear power plant being hit. So that's an ongoing, developing story. But last night, when it was hit, Israel evacuated people in the area, and the evacuation by Israel took place minutes before the Dimona nuclear power plant was hit. And Iran has put forth massive hits on Israel by hypersonic missiles. And Iran has also hit a U.S. Navy base in Bahrain. We have this also. Currently, Israel is hitting Lebanon. Now, news flash. Before Saturday, when the first hit took place on Iran, Netanyahu and his team evac'd to Germany, where they still sit. And we have this. Iran is currently using hypersonic missiles, and one that was seen over Israel evaded 10 intercepts and what made a successful hit inside Israel. We're hearing synagogues are being hit, civilian buildings, and so on. Apparently, Iran is not trying to hit military targets inside Israel, but rather civilian and nuclear sites. And we have this, that inside Iran, dozens of its nuclear facilities have been hit by the U.S. And we're hearing multiple reports that the 3 bunker busters Saturday that took out the Ayatollah and 48 of the top Iranian leaders was made by the U.S. B-2 bombers flying from the U.S. to Iran and then back to the U.S. And we're currently hearing reports that Iran is pounding Israel. From Israel, Channel 14, Iran is hitting Israel with hypersonic missiles. So that's going on. And yes, we have multiple reports about the F-15s being shot down over Kuwait. CENTCOM said it was friendly fire by Kuwait. And we also are hearing about some terrorist-like events going on in the U.S. Last night, another shooting in Cincinnati where 13 people were shot. Now, it's believed the FBI and Homeland Security, having put out that warning to the American people and to the U.S. police forces that they had evidence that sleeper cells had been activated by Iran. So we are not hearing details about many incidents, merely a headline. So 15 shot in Cincinnati last night, no other details. And a stabbing took place near Washington, D.C. on the 495 highway, where 4 people were stabbed. Again, we're not hearing more details. We have this. We had President Trump speaking early this morning. He remains resolute. Way to go, President Trump. And that the ongoing epic fury in operation by the U.S. in Iran will last up to 4 to 5 weeks or longer if needed. But the U.S. military is currently ahead of their own schedule. The IAEA spoke this morning saying that they believed a nuclear facility in Iran had been hit in Natanz. The IAEA has no direct contact with Iran. They are simply judging by satellite pictures, but are reporting no radiation leak, while information about the hit on the Dimona nuclear power plant in Israel is not forthcoming. We have a report from the YouTube site What the Ship from a maritime expert, Sal M. A U.S. tanker has been hit in Bahrain. It was in dry dock, so it had no fuel on it. The Stena Imperative was hit by Iran. It is one of 10 U.S. tanker security group that the U.S. put together in the last few months to ensure safe shipping of U.S. military oil. Excuse me. So we had last night, about 2 a.m., Iran hitting the Stena Imperative in dry dock in Bahrain. 1 shipyard worker was killed and 2 were injured. Currently, the U.S. tanker is secure. We have this from Ward Carroll. 3 F-15s were shot down over Kuwait, allegedly by friendly fire. CENTCOM says it is friendly fire from the CENTCOM location in Tampa. CENTCOM also has a regional office in Qatar. And we're hearing this. Yes, it's being reported now by CENTCOM. Our initial report yesterday was rest in peace, 3 U.S. military. We had 3 killed, and we still don't have details. What branch of service? Certainly not identities of the U.S. troops, nor where the takedown occurred. So yesterday, I reported 3 dead and I believe 5 injured. One of the injured has succumbed. So now we say rest in peace for U.S. military. And this report comes out from CENTCOM. So that's going on. And we have this. We have from Epoch Times American Thought interviewed a Chinese-American Christian, Gordon Chang, who is talking about China, and their goal is to exterminate, kill all American citizens. They tried with their Wuhan lab COVID virus in 2020. And we have also that a goal of China is to exterminate the American people and also destroy the U.S. government and destroy the U.S. Constitution. China's desire is to rule America. China continues massive organ harvesting of minority groups, plus its own people, which it has tagged by DNA samples so that they China can just go out, pick up the Chinese citizen, harvest their organs, and sell them. China is a godless pagan country. And we see President Trump taking brilliant moves against China, cutting off its oil from Venezuela, and now in the process of cutting off oil to China from Iran. And we continue to hear inside China, they are on the brink of kinetic civil war. So that's going on. And we have this. Also, Gordon Chang puts forth that China's military is not capable of taking Taiwan through military force. And currently, Xi's purge of the military has stripped the Chinese military of any leader who has combat experience or training. So we see the head of the snake being taken off by its own supposed president. And we have this. Also, an upcoming important meeting in China. Xi, the CCP, and the Chinese military March 3 to 4 is to take place. And another development indicating the turmoil inside China is that 9 CCP deputies apparently have disappeared. They're no longer part of the CCP and will not be attending the upcoming meeting. Now, Gordon Chang has advice for President Trump. He advised President Trump to find out how, his report came out yesterday, 3 U.S. military were killed, and were they killed by Chinese weapons? Gordon Chang's advice to President Trump on his upcoming March 31 to April 2nd visit in China: if the U.S. military were killed by Chinese weapons, then President Trump definitely should not go to China. So that concludes my flash update. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
2 days ago, under the direction.
Okay. Wow, we got a big show today. So we don't have to do Billy Bean unless she comes out with a third one tonight. A lot of stuff out today. We'll get some short ones. I haven't seen our regular channel ones that come out every day yet. One lady did. She had the 2-minute one so far. So hopefully we'll get all those to share tonight. Have a good dinner time, and we'll see you after dinner time. Well, good to see you again, and thanks for being a mod. So we got another mod in. We got Go, hey, Tim, Lucy, and Carol. So God bless everybody. Love all. Remember, please hit the like and sub to the backup channels, please, in the description box. Thank you. God bless everybody. Love all. Please hit the up. Stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith, never give up. And we'll see you after dinner time. About 6.